Good morning, councillors and staff, and welcome to the Community Standing Committee meeting, 10th of March 2021. It's lovely to be with everybody, and trust we'll have a good, enjoyable and productive committee meeting today. I'd now like to declare the meeting open at 9:01 a.m, and I don't believe we have any apologies or requests for leave of absence. As such, we'll move on to Councillor Duff to perform the recognition of the traditional owners.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning and acknowledge the elders, the Waka Waka people, both past, present and emerging. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors, you have the agenda with you. Does any councillor wish to disclose a declarable or prescribed conflict of interest in relation to any matter in the agenda? Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd just like to declare a potential conflict of interest. I am a partner in Shuey Brothers Pastoral, and the company owns a property on Peterson Drive, which is on the corner of the highway and opposite the airport, directly opposite the airport. The property is used for cropping at the moment. Item 9.7, Kingroy Aerodrome Airpark proposal. So, Mr Mayor, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest for the item 9.7, being that I'm a partner in Shuey Brothers Pastoral, and the company owns a property on Peterson Drive that is used for cropping. So I propose I'll leave the meeting while my councillors decide whether I can stay in the meeting for the discussion about the proposal.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Let's deal with that now. Councillor Shoemaker, feel free to stay. Did you want to provide any more information before you leave? You're happy with what you provided? Feel free to provide more.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. As I said, the property's been in the family for I don't know, a number of years now. We crop peanuts there at the moment. Could certainly do with a drink, and yeah, there's really not a lot. We don't use the property. Nobody lives on the property. It's just rural land, and it's directly opposite the airport. So the runway. It's a great place. Got prime view of the gliders and the planes and things that fly into the airport when we're there, but we're very rarely there.
Thanks very much, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll just note that Councillor Shoemaker has now left the room and is intended to stay away until the conflict of interest matter is resolved. Councillors, this would constitute, in my view, please correct me, Mr CEO, if I'm wrong, a declarable conflict of interest. As such, it's a matter to be determined by council. I've heard Councillor Shoemaker's commentary in relation to such. Does any councillor wish to put forward a motion? Councillors, Councillor Duff.
I think that I'd like to Councillor Shoemaker stay in the room. I think that that she wouldn't have any like that she could still make a decision without having any influence to do with the property. I think that given that they don't live there and that it's only like a partnership interest, I think that she's quite, I'm happy that she would stay in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Okay, councillors, we'll put it to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Councillors, passed unanimously. Thank you all. General Manager, could we invite Councillor Shoemaker back to the room? Thank you. So that's been carried unanimously. Councillor Shoemaker, Council has resolved that you may participate and in the debate and certainly vote on the matter. Thank you for such. Councillors, any other conflict of interest matters to deal with? No? If not, we'll move forward. Thank you. Item 5.1, the previous minutes of the Standing Committee meeting for this committee held on the 10th of February 2021. The minutes can be found at 5. Council's had opportunity over recent days to review the minutes. Does anyone have any questions or comments in relation to such? If not, I'll hereby move that the minutes of the Community Standing Committee meeting held on the 10th of February 2021 be received. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Henson. Councillors are happy with that? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, 6.1 is the Community Arts, Heritage, Sport and Recreation Portfolio Report, and it's now my pleasure to invite Councillor Potter to present such. Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We'll start with community. So the Community Grant Program, round 2 of the 2021 Community Grant Program closed on Sunday the 28th of February. 43 applications were received over a variety of categories. An assessment of these applications is anticipated to happen in late March with the announcement of successful applicants in early April. With the library, the refurbishment of the Mergen and Kingroy Library children's areas. Over the next few weeks, the library staff will be working in the Kingroy and Mergen libraries and Proston libraries to update and rejig shelving in the junior and large print collections. In Kingroy, display shelving will be added to the junior fiction and junior non-fiction collections, whilst in Mergen, the dated pink shelving in the junior area will be replaced with a focus on front-facing displays designed to be more appealing to young community members. In the Proston Library, mobile shelving will replace a run of shelving so that the area can easily be transformed to accommodate more attendees at events and programs hosted there. Library Lovers Day. The South Burnett Library celebrated Library Lovers Day once again this year on Sunday the 14th of February. This event provided the chance for community members to reconnect with their local library and share the love. When asked what there is to love about the South Burnett Library, some responses included welcoming and friendly atmosphere, cheerful, helpful, efficient and professional staff. It is so bright and spacious, neat and organised with friendly, welcoming staff. And we all have to admit here that our library staff are probably some of the best staff within council, and I apologise to every single other council worker for saying that, but I could be slightly biased. Move to Overdrive. From mid-March, library patrons who access free e-audiobooks and e-magazines in the South Burnett Libraries RB digital app will be promoted to the Libby by Overdrive app, available from the Apple App Store or Google Play. All titles currently available on the RB Digital will be transferred across, with an additional 3,000 e-magazines added to this wonderful digital collection. Those seeking further information about this change are encouraged to contact their local library branch. School holiday activities. The South Burnett Libraries are excitedly planning activities for young community members in the upcoming holidays. It is hoped that programs can be once again hosted in each branch, with attendance restricted to adhere to COVID-safe requirements. A take-home craft will also be offered for children who are unable to attend the in-house programs. School holidays will also provide another opportunity for young people in the South Burnett to join the free children's loyalty program, Kingdom of Libraria. There is a photo attached to the program for those of you who are following on home. The photo attached is of 2 kids who have done the Kingdom of Libraria adventures. With arts, the Kingroy Winter Craft Festival, the Kingroy Art Gallery are underway planning their annual Queensland Winter Craft Festival. The festival runs from the 1st of June through to the 28th of July 2021, and during this period, 16 workshops and many free demonstrations will be held at the gallery. A quilt trail will be held on the weekend of the 24th of July, which will be held at many local businesses throughout the South Burnett region, which will showcase our local businesses. A wearable hat competition will be held in the months of June and July, which will include 3 categories: open 13 to 17, 5 to 12, the open category, the 13 to 17 and the 5 to 12 years, and this will be judged on opening night. How to curate an exhibition workshop is being held at the Wando Regional Art Gallery on the 22nd and 23rd of March 2021, and the aim of this workshop is to equip artists and cultural workers with the skills and confidence to tackle curating their own exhibitions. Sport and Rec. The annual season soccer 7 tournaments was held in Kingroy at the Senior Soccer Club. Over 500 players with 26 men's teams, 13 women's teams and 9 over 35 teams completed the weekend. Teams came from the Gold Coast, Sunshine Coast, Toowoomba, Chinchilla, Harvey Bay, Bundaberg and South Burnett clubs, and this was a great boost to the local economy. Cricket season is well underway and the local junior and senior fixtures taking place each weekend. South Burnett junior cricket teams, you've got under 12s, under 14s and under 16s, also travelled to Bundaberg in February. The Kingroy junior cricket have submitted applications to the Australian Cricket Federation and the Gambling Community Benefit Fund for new practice nets at the River Road Oval. The first camp draft for the South Burnett was held at Burrendown Picnic Race Grounds at Chipinga on the 19th to the 21st of February. This event was well supported by competitors who travelled from afar and enjoying the 2.5 days of drafting. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to move that my Community Arts, Heritage, Sport and Recreation portfolio be accepted. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Potter. And of course, there's some wonderful work being done there by the staff as always. We know you're very passionate about supporting them, so we won't mind if you're a little bit biased when it comes to your portfolio. Councillors, we have the motion that the report be received for information. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors, any questions for portfolio holder on the report? Comments? No? Comfortable with that? Okay, let's put that to vote. All those in favour? Okay, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Okay, let's move on to 6.2, which can be found at 24, and it is the report on Council's arrangements with the Cherbourg Council in relation to the control of honey locust and parthenium weed spraying on the Bramber Creek. I might just hand over to General Manager O'May to give us a bit of background on that council before we go into discussion. Thank you very much, General Manager.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, this was just a follow-up from the last standing committee where Councillor Duff just requested an update on the parthenium spraying up in the headwaters, Bramber Creek in Cherbourg. So, yeah, we work with the Cherbourg Regional Council, have for a number of years in spraying the parthenium. So, the office has also added, because we did get some additional funding through the, combating some of the drought funding, can't remember the name of it, but we did get some additional funding to target some honey locust in the same area. So yeah, we basically do the inspections and treatment of any parthenium that comes out. I think late last year we did an update, but when it was so dry there really hadn't been much germination. But since we had that rain in, I think it was just really only one spot of rain in February, we had some good rain there. We have had germination pass since then, and so that's when they will go in and usually treat then. So yeah, just the update is there.
Yeah, thanks very much, General Manager. Councillors, we've got the report. We have a mover that be received. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Second, thank you, Councillor Potter. Okay, councillors, let's open up the floor to any questions, comments in relation to the report. Councillor Duff.
I just wanted to thank General Manager for the update, and really pleased to see that we're working closely with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council, because I know that particularly the parthenium is a real issue for the farmers, and so that's great to see we're on top of that, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Thanks, General Manager and Manager, for that work. Okay, councillors, those in favour, receipt of report. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 7.1 is the Rural Services, Natural Resource Management, Planning and Compliance Services Portfolio Report, and I'd like to now invite Councillor Henshin to present that. Thanks very much, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, it gives me pleasure to present my Rural Services, Natural Resource Management and Planning and Compliance Services report for the month of February gone and March. In weed control, NRM staff and contractors joined forces with Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council and Bramber Creek landowners to commence a surveillance and treatment program for honey locusts and parthenium. And I just bring it to people's attention, some people that are unaware, and there's been a wonderful report done, and thank you, Acting Manager Mark Watt, in your presentation that complements this report, but some people think honey locust is a grasshopper. So could I just bring it to people's and the public's attention? Honey locust is not a grasshopper, it is actually a shrub. It's a tree that can grow to some 20 odd metres tall. We have within our region a wonderful booklet from the Weed Society of Queensland, Weeds of Southern Queensland. I would encourage everybody to get a hold of that, and it's a very, very good explanatory book on what honey locust is, along with every other weed in our region. In total, 19 hectares of weeds control was completed in February. Treatment of annual ragweed was undertaken in the Upper Barkers Creek district in partnership with landowners. Treatment of joint rat's-tail grass throughout the region and groundsel at Deep Creek and Tabinga. Splatter guns were loaned by landowners at Dangor, Bowie, Wengenville, Warrulan, Burrendown, Blackbutt, Brooklands, Glenrock and Chelmsford to assist with groundsel and lantana control. And spray trailers were borrowed by landowners at Bowie, Dangor, Maidenwell, Ellesmere, Memorandie for the treatment of restricted weeds. In fire management, NRM staff met with QFES and the brigade members to plan and prioritise prescribed burns for the 21-22 Operation Cool Burn season. Fire trail maintenance will commence this month and burns will be conducted from mid-April to late August when the conditions are suitable. In environmental assessments, NRM staff completed an environmental assessment for vegetation removal. Removal associated with the Baillie Road upgrade, 6 roadside burning and fence line clearing applications were approved. In the stock route grazing permits, there were no stock route grazing applications that were received or processed in February. In sale yards, the staff conducted 2,195 cattle tick inspections, dipped 2,363 head, and a total of 1,506 head were sold through the Coolabunga sale yards in February. An upgrade to the wireless microwave link to the scales building at Coolabunga sale yards has been commissioned, and the upgrade involves connectivity to the building, data cabinet, power switchgear and 2 new computers and printer. The livestock exchange software currently in use will be transferred to the new devices, which will improve processing of sales. And a budget of $20,000 was allocated for this upgrade and is part of the 3rd quarterly review. Council set up a working committee comprising of councillors and staff to assist BIEDO in developing a grant application to apply under round 5 of the Australian Government Building Better Regions Fund. The project titled Coolabunga Sale Yards Upgrade aims to apply for $525,000 in grant funding under related infrastructure stream investment pool with the BBRF. If successful, Council will complement the grant funding with an additional $525,000, giving a total project value of $1,050,000. The project forms part of Council's commitment to upgrade the Coolabunga sale yards, thus ensuring South Burnett primary producers and other stakeholders have a selling complex that meets the safety and animal welfare requirements with ease of use. The upgrade, if successful, will start at the southern end of the sale yard, replacing 33 wooden pens with 72 new steel pens, which will complement the existing stud selling ring. Wild dog and feral pig control. 5 cat traps were hired out to landowners in the Mergen, Nanango, Blackbutt, Kingroy and East Nanango areas, and cameras were used by landowners in Redgate and Cushney to monitor feral animal movements. In rabbit control, biological control was distributed on 2 properties in Mergen. Wandering livestock, Council received 5 requests to attend to wandering livestock across the region. 1 cow and weaner calf were impounded. In planning, economic support instrument, Council adopted the economic support instrument at the ordinary meeting of Council on Wednesday the 24th of February 2021. That makes temporary change to the provision of Council's planning scheme that allows .1 changes to the level of assessment for a development application for certain uses from impact to code assessment in the business and industry zones in the region. And point 2, removal of the requirement for a planning application to make a material change to use of any existing building provided the number of car parks and landscaping is not reduced. And 3, removing the requirements for establishing a home-based business in the residential and township zones provided the use is not an industry activity and the acoustic noise objectives of the Environmental Protection Noise Policy 2019 are met. Council further proposes to incorporate the provisions of the instrument in the amendment of the planning scheme to be a permanent addition of the development requirements. The adopted instruments will supplement the recently adopted infrastructure charge incentives. This scheme allows for a discount of infrastructure charges to certain developments to support the economic recovery and development of the region. Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan Review. Regional plans are statutory, long-term, 25-year strategic documents that guide decision-making and investment for state and local governments. The purpose of a regional plan is to articulate the vision for a region and then provide a contemporary policy framework to inform economic development, plan making and development decisions to achieve the region's vision. Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan will focus and respond to issues at a regional scale rather than at a local scale and assist state and local governments to align their land use, economic and infrastructure planning priorities to manage growth more effectively. The Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan will not address planning matters that fall within the responsibility of the local government or directly commit governments to spending or infrastructure delivery for specific projects. General Manager O'May and Manager Chris Duplessis met, and I hope I've got that right, Chris, thank you, met with officers at the Regional and Spatial Planning Branch of the Department of State Development, Infrastructure, Local Government and Planning on Friday the 12th of February 2021 to discuss the issues and opportunities for the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan. Input from local governments will be critical in preparing a draft Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan, and the department intends to continue to work closely with local governments over the coming months. From this feedback, the next steps for the project are to: Point 1, a meeting to discuss Council's feedback on the issues and opportunities discussion paper. Point 2, a local government working group meeting on Thursday the 11th of March at Bigoton. And point 3, a Wide Bay Burnett Regional Planning Committee meeting scheduled for Thursday the 18th of March at Harvey Bay. The South Burnett Regional Council Planning Scheme Review. Council resolved to commence proposed amendments to the planning scheme at the ordinary meeting of Council on Wednesday the 24th of February 2021. This will be the first major amendment since its adoption 4 years ago. The proposed amendment will aim to improve the scheme's efficiency by providing more streamlined requirements for development and remove unnecessary triggers for community development applications. Council is seeking initial feedback from the development industry and the community to identify issues that should be included in a review of the planning scheme. This feedback will be included in a proposal amendment package to inform changes of the provisions of the planning scheme. For further information, to arrange a meeting with the planning team or to make a written submission, please contact Council's planning team at planning@sbrc.qld.gov.au or call 41899 100. In environmental health, COVID-19, the Queensland Show Circuit commenced recently, starting down in Stanthorpe. Queensland Health were heavily involved in this event as it was to be the first of many within Queensland. The required COVID-safe event plan is being used as a template for the other shows, and Council's environmental health staff have endeavoured to contact all the various show societies within the South Burnett to proactively engage with them and provide some advice and assistance in developing their own COVID-safe plans. And on that, I'll make note of this weekend's Proston show that Councillor Duff has been heavily involved, and there's been some changes for the show for Saturday, which will only enhance what was already a great event to be better than what was initially proposed. Now, gearing up for the shows and other proposed large events, inquiries continue to inundate the small environmental health team. Compliance, permanent compliance officer position and temporary dog registration compliance officer position. Interviews are presently occurring for a replacement compliance officer. So with that, I'd like my Rural and Natural Resources Management, Planning and Compliance Portfolio Report be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Henson. Well done on what's a very comprehensive report. Quite a bit to present there. So, councillors, we have the motion that the report be received for information. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Okay, councillors, any questions in relation to the report? Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you. Just want to a question. When did the submissions close for the planning scheme? It wasn't in the report. I just wondered what date that was. And I also, sorry.
Yeah. At this date, we're just still putting together the amendment package to send off to the minister. So we just at the moment we haven't got a submission date. So we're just calling for those. If people wanted to contact them, remember when council talked about this, if there was any issues, people had now before we call for the formal submissions on the planning scheme. So this is just the opportunity for people to contact us while we're putting the amendments package together. So we haven't got a closing date, but sooner rather than later, because once we send that off to the minister, we'll start to enter the formal process of the planning scheme review. So this is just the formal part up front.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to also acknowledge what Councillor Henson said about the changes to the shows. They're struggling with the different regulations, and they're getting, when they ring Queensland Health, there's different answers, and it's a bit confusing. So, but they were able to make a decision last night at the Proston show to actually now have a bar, and I know that Councillor Henson said that it was going to improve the show, so it was going to be a bit of a challenge to have all those, we've got big cattle show and chooks and different things like that, and no bar. So we are now going to run a bar from 2 o'clock till 6 o'clock as part of the show. But there's a lot of challenges around dealing with the COVID issues and working closely with Queensland Health. But I know that Mergen Show's not running their rodeo because of the COVID restrictions, so it is making it more challenging. But the shows must go on, and they are. So thank you.
Well said, Councillor Duff. The shows must go on, of course. And I'm looking forward to being out there on Saturday. Other councillors, no doubt, if you're available, it'll be great to see everyone out there if you can make it on Saturday. Manager planning, just going further to the proposed major amendment to the scheme, just wanting to know, are we putting some media around that through our media team to make sure that the community are informed that we're going down this path and that the opportunity is open to at least give some initial feedback?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we did in a media release that was published after the last ordinary meeting, included that information. So we have had contact from a particular landowner already confirming to us what previously she submitted to us in terms of a zoning change. So we're keeping a tally of, or a record of the changes, and we've been doing that sort of for the last couple of years already. But I suggest probably within the next at least month to month and a half, we will be in a position to draft up a list of the proposed amendments. And as Peter said, that list will be just to go to the minister. Once we go to the formal public notification part, the community will have a sort of a second opportunity to make further submissions or make a completely new submission as well. So I think at this stage it's very early, but it's a good opportunity for people who have at the front of their minds now that they want stuff changed and amended to put that in, but it's certainly not the first or the last opportunity.
Thank you, Manager. Mr. CEO, did you want to add anything to that?
Just the first batch went out on the 24th of February. So media, traditional media, social media.
So just to confirm the community that pretty well straight away upon resolving to pursue a planning scheme major amendment has gone out to the community. I know it's certainly on our website and would encourage those interested parties to contact council either through email or through our customer contact to get that information in. Manager, just while we've got you here, also in terms of council's development incentive scheme, are you able to provide us just a general, don't expect the data, but just a general overview as to how that's travelling in terms of applications coming through the system?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, to date we've received 6 requests. So we're keeping a register that we review every fortnight. So to date we've received 6 requests for developments, but the developments have not been completed yet. So people are jumping on board, which is good, and try and get the discount in before they actually complete the development. So we've written back to them and we're putting an internal process in place to actually assess and review and respond to those particular. So at the moment, none are qualifying because they haven't completed the development yet. But like I said, there's 6 applications at the moment, ranging from 2 residential developments like dual occupancies, duplexes, and the others are for subdivisions, so creating additional rural residential land.
Excellent, thank you, Manager. Councillors, any comments, questions on the report? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr Mayor, those, what Manager Duplessis just spoke about makes me very nervous, but we'll talk about that later in another meeting when we have opportunity. I just want to raise issues with the BBRF funding for the Coolabunnya sale yards. If we're successful, we have $1,050,000, and it says that we're only going to be replacing 33 wooden pens. Is that all the work that we're going to do, or will there be other work around that? Because 33 pens for $1 million doesn't seem enough for me for that amount of money to be spent out there.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, it does include the upgrading those pens, but it is a complete upgrade of the water infrastructure out there, which added additional. This has all been quoted out as BBRF is shovel ready. So yeah, major upgrades to the water for the whole complex. Out there was the additional costing on what was initially sought. But yeah, there'll be new pens, but that also comes with new catwalks, shade over the catwalks and that. So.
Yes, Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I just wanted to let Councillor Jones know that I just think I know that it seems like a small amount of pens, but it's actually doubling the size because we're cutting them in half. Each pen, so it'll be double the 33, and plus it's just going to be like similar to Bigoton, that whole model. And I thought it was incredibly good value for money when the quote came through that I didn't think we'd get anywhere near that much for the money. So I'm really, really excited about this stage of the Coolabunnya sale yards. I think it's going to make a huge difference, and fingers crossed that we get that funding, because I'm quite sure the community will be absolutely pleased, and the agents and everybody when they see what we can get for that money, and like the shaded walkways and making it all safe. And it's just, I'm really, really excited about it, and just wanted to thank everybody who was involved in that process. Going to Bigoton, I think, was really good, and I think that, yeah, like I say, everyone's going to be pleased if we can get that funding. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, just in response to that, Mr Mayor, totally agree with Councillor Duff, but all I was trying to do was highlight that there was other works going on that wasn't mentioned in the report here. All I'm just saying is there's going to be water upgrades and catwalks and all that wasn't mentioned. So that's basically where I was coming from, just to draw the attention to there is a lot of other stuff just included in that upgrading of 33 pens to 72. Totally on board and agree with Councillor Duff's comments there.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. It'll be good to see that we've got those, and as you're highlighting those additional works, particularly with the water infrastructure, converting those old 33 timber yards, timber pens that were much bigger than what was often needed, to now 72 pens that can be flexible with the gates opening up inside the pens to be able to create larger or smaller pens. So Councillor Henson, I think you're well aware that'll make a much more flexible and more practical arrangement for the operation of the yards.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. And as Councillor Duff has alluded, and Councillor Jones, the design that's gone into this, it looks as though 33 wooden pens and 72 new steel ones. The efficiency will, I would suggest, be, or not immeasurable, but it will double, it will triple, it would quadruple the efficiency of those yards, and the water infrastructure there, as many people know, it's in serious need of repair. The efficiency alone in the water structure there will certainly surprise many, and I mean the council and the people involved behind the scenes and our staff that have put this together, and the work that's been done on this. And we travelled some miles, as council, we travelled some miles to look at other facilities and take on board what is possible. And of course, this has to be accepted before it goes ahead and the grant come forward. But it's a great step for the future and the community and the people that use that Coolabunna sale yards. There will be some major changes out there, and it'll be a matter of the locals and the community getting their head around it, but that's progress, and yeah, it's an exciting step that if the funding's successful, it will be a great project.
Yeah, thanks very much, and congratulations to the councillors that were involved in working on that. And we could ask on behalf of council if we could have a little bit of council just to pass on to General Manager O'May. If you could please pass on council's gratitude to the staff involved in getting an application together under fairly difficult circumstances. We weren't given much time. There was a fair bit of work had to go into putting it in. I believe it's a very good application. So if you could pass on our thanks to the staff, that would be much appreciated. Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I certainly agree. Actually, I can't believe the BBRF round has been extended after all the work we put into actually meeting the deadline, but I do understand and certainly acknowledge the work that's happened. I just wondered in relation to, I've got a couple of questions, in relation to, through you, Mr. Mayor, to GM O'May, in relation to the Coolabunna sale yards, the actual design plans that have been drafted, perhaps when the BBRF round closes, is it possible to share those plans with the community? Because regardless of the funding, whether we are successful or not, and certainly I know we're all very hopeful that we are, is it possible to share with our community what the plans and visions are for the facility after the BBRF round has closed? Because I'm mindful there may be other applications in the round, so now's not the right time.
Yeah, that, most definitely we can do that. I think, yeah, we do need to. We have been engaging with agents and different users with the plans that are proposed, but yeah, there's no reason we wouldn't be sharing them.
Fabulous, thank you. And just my second question, when we were talking about Coolabunna sale yards, we've also had a lot of discussion as a chamber around the business planning of that facility and the operations of it, those the systems that we use, these sorts of things. And I'm mindful on the back of the BBRF application that no doubt there's a number of learnings from the process we've been through. I'm just wondering, are there plans to continue those conversations into the actual business planning phase of Coolabunna sale yards?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, most definitely, and we have already commenced that process. I think following, end of last year when council committed to keep the facilities, and we did commit to doing that business planning around that. And I know Manager Mark has been sort of working on that, pulling that stuff together and getting some assistance. So yeah, so that is a piece of work we're currently working on, and we'll be back before council very shortly.
Excellent. Oh, thank you. I'm looking forward to that. I think that's really important conversations to be had. My other question, just in relation to NRM funding programs and projects, I just met with some stakeholders the other day at Carroll Park, and just got me thinking about how we allocate funding to our natural resources management program. Do we have like a hierarchy of projects and priorities across the region, or are we looking more, is it more of a reactive program, so when something is identified as an issue we invest in it then? I was just wondering if I could get a little clarity around the process.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, our priorities probably are dictated by the infestations and say in Carroll Nature Reserve, I suppose we have a lot of issues with environmental weeds, so our priority are generally the declared weeds, and that can be identified through complaints, or we do a number of property inspections. So, say something like the creek where you do find infestations, and you will follow that down and try do those. But yeah, it is essentially limited by the priorities. Do revert back to those programs. We do look at if we have got any infestations, like we map things, so we will go back and try if we can target an area that we're aware of from previous years. We will obviously follow up in the next seasons and try ensure we are at least controlling or containing, if not reducing infestations. So probably using that mapping system is probably one of the key areas. But yeah, as far as we probably don't have a prioritisation on the environmental weeds, if what you're
Yeah.
looking up in there. So it really is in those high risks like both the Parthenium and say honey locust that we're targeting at the moment, and some of those declared plants.
Yeah, no, thank you, and certainly understand budget constraints and things in that space as well. So thank you for the clarification. And my last question, Mr. Mayor, just in relation to the regional plan review. At the last committee meeting, we moved to set up a subcommittee for the Wide Bay Burnett Regional Plan Review, and I'm just probably keen looking at those timeframes. Like I know we've had that discussion that it's quite tight. Is there a possibility for that subcommittee to come together to look at that issues and opportunities discussion paper?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, well, Manager Chris and I have actually spoken about this, and we're just trying to compare diaries at the moment. So Chris has got a meeting with the working group officer level tomorrow, so we'd be trying to pull that committee together in the next couple of days to at least get a briefing starting. So yeah, we actually were looking at diaries, so probably if we can catch up with those members today
No
and pin a date down, that'd be really good.
I'm more than happy to clear the diary for that one because that's such a big priority for our region. So thank you. And sorry, my last question, just in relation to the planning scheme review. I know you said you've kept that register for some time now of all the people who've been contacting us around issues around the planning scheme. So I just wanted to understand, are they being contacted or are those issues already lodged as part of our first sort of submission to the Minister?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so what we've been doing is, as we've been implementing the scheme on an officer level, if we pick up a particular issue that we think could be dealt with better, we note it on our list to explore further. I'll give you an example. Yesterday or the day before, I had a email from the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. They're currently reviewing council's planning schemes in the Wide Bay Burnett to determine if there's any impediments or if they can promote on-farm processing, for example. So that's something we add on our list and say, okay, that's a good outcome. So it is more people that is over time that sort of came out of the woodwork, okay, so to speak, or I mean, the one particular case is close to Swickers, where somebody already has an approval, but the current scheme doesn't reflect that approval and things like that. No. So, yeah, the issue with the planning scheme is for most people, it's, with respect, a pretty boring document, you know, so it's sometimes hard to get people to respond to it, but you do get people who interact with it. And I think we've installed certainly in the planning staff approach of let's try and constantly innovate and see how we can make it more competitive and easier, so that if somebody wants to develop in our town, it should be easy and comfortable for them to do so.
Manager Chris, the music to our ears. Thank you very much for the work you're doing in that space. Thank you, Councillor Henshin, for the report. No further questions from me. Mayor Otto.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillors, any other questions or comments on that? If not, we've got a motion that the report be received for information. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you again, Councillor Henshin and managers, for that information. Councillors, just I wanted to raise a matter in relation to the compliance on dogs throughout the South Burnett region. So, of course, in our corporate plan that's now out in draft form for community consultation, we've talked a lot about livability and about, Councillor Shoemaker's talked a lot about connectivity of pathways and walkways and the rail trail and getting out community out, being healthy and active. And of course, it's always an ongoing issue for council in having to support the community in regulating potentially menacing or dangerous dogs across our region. As such, I'm really keen to come back to council some further information on how we manage that process. So, councillors, what I'd like to do is move a motion off the floor. The report be brought to the April Standing Committee meeting. And I'll just, outlining the current state legislation and local government laws. We call them local government laws. We don't call them bylaws anymore, do we? Is it, Mr. CEO? Local government laws. Local laws, sorry, and our local laws. Maybe just, yeah, and local laws. Just take the word government out, thanks. Local government out, thanks, Lynelle. Yep, and local laws, as well as customer service standards and public awareness programs in relation to dog compliance matters. Councillors, Mr. CEO, does that look like okay? That motion I've put forward there, report be brought to the Appleton Committee meeting outlining the current state legislation and local laws, as well as customer service standards and public awareness programs in relation to dog compliance matters. Councillors, is anyone prepared to second that? Councillor Duff, thank you. Councillors, so we've now got that there. Does any councillor wish to speak for or against the motion? Any commentary from staff? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to ask you a question in terms of your what you hope to achieve from this report, what you'd like to see from this report. I just want to better understand your perspective here.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. It's a really good question. Just wanting to get a better understanding of what the requirements of the state legislation and our local laws are when it comes to dealing with potentially menacing or dangerous dogs, with a view to, I suppose, making sure that the local laws and the customer service standards are in keeping with the community's expectations, that are going to be in keeping with what we're wanting to achieve in our corporate plan, and that also wanting to look at the possibility of a public awareness program to make sure that the community are educated as to or informed as to their responsibilities as dog owners, particularly in relation to potential menacing and dangerous dogs. So I really just want to get a better understanding of the laws around this, and perhaps look at whether there's scope for us to perhaps improve the work that we do in this space. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with the public awareness campaign. However, I'm just probably would like a bit more information from GMO May. It's my understanding this is quite a legislative process, and there's clear state government directives here. So I guess, are we looking more around that public awareness campaign and education piece for people? I'm probably just keen to hear your view, GMO May.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Yeah, we can bring a report back and basically just outlining all the steps in actually, say if it was for a regulated dog. So yeah, there are a number, as you said, a number of steps. It is legislated through the state, all the processes that we need to go through. So yeah, we can bring that back, and it is often a more timely process to go from the start to finish. So it probably would be good for the public to be aware of that. It doesn't mean that we don't act on these things very quickly, but from the final, or from the first initial report that we get to a dog being declared dangerous, there is a series of natural justice steps that the process has in place. And I know that Mr. Mayor is keen on the customer service standards, making sure that we are acting on these. And I can say, look, your previous question on priorities, I certainly know our compliance officers, a dog attack is bumped straight to the number one priority when we do have those. But yeah, no, we can probably bring a report back on what the current process is, and then look at from that developing a public awareness program on some of those areas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No further questions.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, General Manager. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really keen to see this happen because I have a pile of dog complaints, and I think that the the concern that I have is, I know that the staff are following up with those complaints, but I don't think that sometimes that's being fed back to the original customer, and that, I think that's where the breakdown is, so I'm really keen to see what our customer service standards are in that space, and also what we are. I know there's privacy around some of the compliance matters, and obviously not wanting to let anyone know who's putting complaints in and things like that. But I just think that it might be just something we need to tweak, because I do have quite a number of customers who are not getting feedback. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Could I also, it's really important that I point out here too that we, as highlighted in Councillor Henson highlighting his report, we are down one compliance officer. Just per minute of council and the community, we are down one compliance officer, and council has been, I know, under the direction of our CEO, has been moving quickly as appropriate to fill that position, to appoint another compliance officer. That's my understanding, General Manager O'May, yes?
Yeah, that's right, Mr Mayor. Yeah, we're actually conducting interviews. The recruitment phase has finished, and we're into the interviews at the moment. So that's to replace an officer who's retiring towards the end of April, and also some temporary officers for our door-to-door program which we'll be rolling out shortly. And through you, Mr Mayor, just in response to Councillor Duff, I would sort of probably acknowledge that the officers are actioning complaints, but where we do fall down is I think we would acknowledge that we don't get back to the customers and let them know what is going on. We are a bit hamstrung in the privacy issues, what we can advise, but yeah, we certainly acknowledge that that's an area that we do need to improve in, is just letting people know where their complaints are up to. It is a catch-22. While the officers are in the office ringing customers, they're not in the field doing the complaints and that, so they certainly are finding that balance difficult. But we certainly acknowledge the area we do need to improve on is just that follow-up, because people, that they're actually actioning the complaints, but people aren't aware that something is happening. So just would acknowledge that.
Yeah, thanks very much, General Manager, and for the work you're doing in work moving with the People and Culture team to have that position filled. I'm sure we'll see an improvement in time to come once we've got more people on the ground. And General Manager clearly acknowledges there's some work to do in terms of improving our customer response, as you've highlighted, Councillor Duff. So thank you, General Manager. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in light of that information, just probably a question for General Manager O'May. Is the April Standing Committee achievable, being that you're down a compliance officer? Perhaps it might be better to reach for May. Just wanted to understand if you're able to actually deliver on that time frame with your current resources.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, no, we should be able to bring that back, because myself and the manager, Patch, will work on that rather than the compliance officers.
Yeah, good question. Thanks, Councillor. So you're happy with April, Peter? You don't want to push it back to May? I know you've got a fair bit on your plate at the moment, so yeah, you're comfortable with that. Okay, well, councillors, any other councillor wishing to speak to the matter? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr Mayor, I think there's been points touched on here. Councillor Shoemaker, heavily legislated process that we have to go through when we deal with dogs. We're an officer down. There's a few contributing factors. I think General Manager O'May has just acknowledged the fact that they do need to respond better to the people and let them know that there is a follow-up. And the other thing is, with the community awareness program, I think we need to be aware that, yeah, it's a good thing and all that sort of stuff, but the people you reach with that community awareness program are the people that probably are understanding of the legislation and all that sort of stuff, and a majority of our problem dogs would not be owned by those people. So you may not, with a community, even that you put a community awareness program out, you may not get to the source of the problem. It in my observations, there's a lot of people out there that probably own dogs that would not even take any notice of a community awareness program, but just highlighting that fact that, yeah, it may not reach where our problem lies.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Jones. Good point that you make. You can only try, can't you? And I suppose for me, it's also to make the community aware that, to report these matters. Don't just, if you've got a dog, for example, that's coming at you aggressively when you're walking past a fence line, you can report that to council, and our officers will endeavour to at least have a conversation with the owner to say, hey, can we try and put some controls around this? Because we do want to encourage people to get out and walk our towns. We don't want people not walking. I know there are some people in our region that won't walk. I know I don't like to walk around town in Kingroy myself for fear of dogs coming out of their yard, for fear of a dog even coming at the fence. You just don't know, can that dog jump? Or, it does create a fearful situation. I find it a real deterrent to me, walking. I tend to go out in the bush and walk. I'll drive out in the bush and walk up the bush somewhere where hopefully there's no dogs. So it's also to make the public aware that you can report these matters, and our compliance staff will respond and they will deal with it. They have got legislative complaints, but I think I'm trying to take the community with us on this and get their support to make sure that if it's reported, because if it's not reported, our officers can't do much about it. So really wanted to take that line as well. But look, we've debated the matter, councillors. So the motion's there. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Okay, councillors, I thought we might break for morning tea now, if everyone's comfortable with that. So I'd move a procedural motion that we close the meeting, we adjourn the meeting, close the meeting for morning tea, and that we reconvene at 10:15 a.m. Do we have a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Henshin. Those in favour? Thank you, councillors. See everyone back here at 10:15. Welcome back, everybody. I'll now like to move that we reopen the meeting at 10:26. Do we have a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Freiloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Meeting reopened. We're at item 7.2. Can be found at page 30, which is the Natural Resource Management Update. That report has been provided for council, for the committee's information. And Councillor Hedgett, I'm just wondering, would you mind just giving us this is your space, Councillor Duff, isn't it? No? Councillor Hedgett, your portfolio? Sorry. Did you want to just give us a bit of an update on some of those key stats that are in that report? Are you happy to do that? You're happy to give us an update on some of the key figures in that report?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
If that's okay? Yeah, and then we can move to have it received once we've got that information.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, just quickly outlining some of the things, and as I mentioned earlier with our acting manager, Mark Watt, there's been a lot of work done with honey locust, and as I said earlier, it's not a grasshopper, it's a tree. African boxthorn, that comes up on my radar regularly around the district in certain areas, and we've got some established feral animal groups. There's some figures there that back up the honey locust to date, and that's in the Stewart River in partnership with the Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire Council. There's been some $31,000 spent there and some 70+ thousand litres of spray being applied over 19 hectares. Now that's not just raw chemical, of course, that's mixed chemical and variation of chemical to control those. And again, I come back to this wonderful book, and I do encourage people, if they haven't seen it, to get a hold of one, or by all means contact myself and I'll make sure that you get one. It is a very, very informative booklet, and it also addresses what chemicals and the rates that you can control those weeds. Quickly on the Coolabunna sale yards, just of interest there for the year to date, 9,064 cattle have been dipped, 8,927 cattle inspected, 6,000 cattle weighed and 6,118 cattle sold there. So under the conditions, that's testament to the Coolabunna sale yards and the staff and the people involved around that it is encouraging people and livestock to be using that facility. Wandering livestock, attendance of 84, impoundments of 4. Interesting, the wild dog and feral pig program. Can I just make note there of a total of 35,000 hectares has been baited and bounties processed. This is a fairly, and to me as a rule, if I take my council hat off for a brief moment and put my rule hat on, the bounties processed in the year to date is 237. That is an incredible number of bounties. Now that, of course, is feral dogs, wild dogs, and that to the primary producers is a huge impact. So between how they are eradicated, there's some wonderful schemes in place with Wengenville and, of course, out in my neck of the woods, some syndicates that are operational. rabbit control, I think people will find in the upcoming months there's going to be an increase in rabbits. I've seen that across the Burnett in the last few months, and that's mainly due to dry weather. The equipment loan, 66 pieces of equipment have been loaned to date. Prescribed burns, the permits, we've had one permit, and I would suggest to our chambers and the public and our staff that in the ongoing weather conditions, I think adjustment permits and travel permits might soar with the current weather conditions and trying to access and use our roadsides. And I encourage people to apply and fill those permits in. And again, that comes back to roadside maintenance with fuel. And I get on to the fire danger. We've gone from a month ago, barely been to keep up with our slashing program, to now, and it's noted, we have a fire. I get notified, and many people do, of course, get notified of the ongoing fire risks, and the level of that is raising every week. So people be diligent, certainly, about fires, but that being said, roadside grazing can contribute to the control of management of the fuel load on the sides of our road. And as we know, that's where all the grass and the debris can be at times. So encourage people to look into permits for roadside grazing. I also encourage people to be very, very diligent about fire. The last thing we need now in the state of the region, and it's not just us, it's across probably the entire state, but the last thing we need is to go into a season with bushfires high on the agenda. So the adjustments and travel permits, prescribed burns, there was 3 of those done. They will be probably limited now as because of the dry weather. There won't be a lot of prescribed burns continue to happen within our rural fire department and our fireys. Environmental assessments and roadworks is 41 of them to date. Fence line clearing and roadside burning applications, 16 of them. And if you look at the weed control, and we get a lot of reports on weeds across the Burnett, like I said, there's 19 hectares been treated in this last month, a total of 79 for the year to date. Now, if you look at the weeds treated across the broader region, it goes from annual ragweed in the Barkers Creek, Parthenium and honey locust, of course, which we touched on earlier, groundsel bush, giant rat-tail grass, cat's claw creeper, Hudson pear, Madeira vine, mother of millions, Patterson's curse, tree pear, water hyacinth, and the rest there is also recorded. Feral animals, customer requests in the feral animals, just quickly, to date, feral animals, 216 to date. And a total, if we took into consideration the feral animals, the wandering livestock, stock inquiries, weeds and NRM in general, to date there's been 402 inquiries. You know, if you count the days and the months, that's an enormous amount of work for our staff to deal with. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of work goes on. So yeah, that's. I'd like to touch on the flying fox, but that's next on the agenda. So I'll end that in my contribution to my portfolio report. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Henshin. Really a lot of good information there you provided, and clearly you're well across what's happening in your portfolio with NRM, so thanks, that's great. Interesting to see, I'm an old acres man, and that hectares baited, that converts out to 90,000 acres have been baited across our region. It's an incredible area, isn't it? And much of it's timbered country, I'd imagine, so yeah, that's tremendous. Yeah, Councillor Jones, did you want to add or questions?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things that when Councillor Henshin was talking, Mr Mayor, that brought things to my attention. The roadside permit grazing, and this is probably something that Councillor Duff has been pushing really hard. Are we still taking that to try and get subsidies through to the LGAQ? Firstly, Mr CEO?
Do you want? Yeah, where it was last out with us, we went back to the department again, and it went through last year's conference from memory. So we got the resolution up at conference. So it's on the state LGAQ agenda. So they would be making representations. Last bit of correspondence we sent back to them again, asking them again, but I think it was their turn to come back to us. But given the previous responses, they were pretty much leaving it, and that's why we went to the conference to try and get it through the LGAQ.
And secondly, with the the feral dogs and all that sort of stuff, there's a major problem starting to arise at the Bunya Mountains. And we're working with, alongside Councillor Hench and myself, the community group up there have just alerted me that there is dogs now coming into their backyards and starting to try and get onto their verandas and everything. And when they're trying to get rid of them, they're starting to growl and get very aggressive and all that sort of stuff. So I think Councillor Hench and myself received emails. They've asked for signage to be put up there. And I believe that our guys have put it through to the natural parks and go, or whatever they are, DTMR or something, or NRM or something like that. So there's process in place there, but that's becoming a real issue up there. So myself and Councillor Henson will keep working on that. And just quickly, I believe that the burning permits will increase through March, because I have on good authority that we're going to get 200 mil through the month of March.
Yeah, let's hope they're right this time round, Councillor Jones. We're all, Councillor Shoemaker, crossing our fingers and toes for our whole region. Pray for rain. Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henson. Would someone like to move that report update be received for information? Yep, Councillor Jones, seconded for that. Yep, thanks, Councillor Froloff. Councillors, did you want to add any more comments, questions on the report at this stage? If not, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thanks, everybody. Okay, we'll just go on to 7.3, which is the Planning and Land Management Operational Update at 33. And I think Councillor Henson's had a pretty busy morning, so I might just ask Manager Chris, if you don't mind just giving us a bit of a run through on that. Thanks very much. And General Manager, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, Councillors. Yeah, so the good news is the mini boom is still continuing. The hope is, and if you read the media, they reckon 2-3 years it will last. My hope is that it lasts longer than that, of course, but so the staff in terms of, and I'll talk about that in a minute, really the staff at the moment. I had a meeting with the plumbing staff on Monday. They're really struggling at the moment just to keep ahead in terms of time frames and so on. There's just so much work on at the moment due to the mini boom. So we've put measures in place, interim measures, and then also longer term measures in terms of recruiting more staff. But yeah, the numbers are still strongly proceeding, as you can see. In terms of getting permits and stuff, our planning is probably a little bit more quieter than building and plumbing. Purely because I think a lot of the government stimulus at the moment is in the building area, and it's not necessarily a wrong thing, because it means our planning scheme is not unnecessarily triggering applications and further permits, which is a good thing in my view. So yeah, like I said, planning certificates, we're almost where we were last year. The building certificates 409 now. If most people who sell a property apply for a building certificate, that means the staff have to go and consult the records and then indicate whether that particular property has an approval on it. We also provide a service called a property inspection service. So the certifier, if there's not an approved or there's not a final, the certifier would actually go out on site for an additional fee, sometimes doing it out charging a fee, and then inspect the buildings to confirm if they are, let's call it in good repair. It's important to note that the building that was built 20 years ago and was never final can't get a final certificate today because the building regulations have changed. So that is impossible for that building to meet today's regulations. So technically, the only thing we can give in that case is basically an opinion from a certifier saying that the structure is safe and habitable. And then, of course, a lot of people decide not to proceed with the contract. So swimming pools, pool compliance, so this is pool compliance, more the fencing, the state legislation in terms of pool fencing. So regulated pools, so these are pools at commercial establishments, of which we don't have a lot. When that is sold, they have to get a certificate every year, and when a house is sold, they have to get a certificate. So Not a lot of them. Plumbing certificates, so these are the same thing, people selling properties and wanting to know if there's plumbing approval been done. The same thing, if the work doesn't comply, we give an opinion more so. Planning customer requests, so 587 at the moment, so we already ahead of last year. That's good, we've got a resource there. So our student planner, Josie, who's now graduated, we will be promoting shortly, is actively in that space. Getting back to customers, and I did reiterate all the teams that it's important to get back to customers, even if it's bad news. Building customer request, very strong, and the same with plumbing customer request. So be mindful, these are customer requests are people who phone in for information, but also people who have applications in at the moment that asking questions about their particular applications. So the next page is just the applications in terms of where we are at. So you can see planning applications as such is a bit down, 37 as opposed to 6, the total for last year, but building and plumbing applications are strongly proceeding. Private certifications will, surprisingly, I thought with our local certifier having to close his business due to licensing requirements, we would see a reduction there, but it seems to me that the private sector from the Gold Coast and other places have taken up the opportunity, so there's still strong growth there as well. So just to note, with a private certification application, our council's only responsibility is to archive the application. So we don't have to review it. We can't review it. We just archive it and keep a record. Next page, please. Sorry, did you? Yeah. So those are just the different types of applications. And for building on the left-hand side, so it's quite clear most of our work is in Class 10A, which are sheds, and Class 1A, which are dwelling houses. And then in terms of relocatable dwellings, and that's siting discretions. Design site means it's a siting discretion. So this is somebody who wants to build closer to the boundary than it's permitted under the Queensland Development Code. Planning applications, yeah, MCU is quite strong, and reconfigurations, usually where they are. QPOS is survey plans. So we've only done one so far this year. And sealing a survey plan is really the last step in creating a lot that somebody can commence to build on. So hopefully that would pick up a little bit more as well. And plumbing applications, we can also see that the domestic non-sewer, so in other words, these are people who live on rural blocks that do not have connections to council's reticulated sewer system, is the predominant type of application. Of course, that means under legislation, council has to keep a register of all these wastewater treatment plants. Council has to ensure or monitor that they serviced as per the manufacturer's recommendations, and every time a plumber services them, they have to give a service report to council, so those things have to be filed. So yeah, there's quite a bit of work involved in managing that process. Next page, if I may. So that's just the private certification statistics, and yeah, it's clear there most of the work is sort of in sheds and domestic Class 1A dwellings, and so really that's where the I suppose also where the government stimulus is focused on is for the home builders.
Thanks very much, Manager. Councillors, any questions on that before we move on? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the report, and certainly it's keen to see, it's good to see that we have exceeded last year's statistics, but I'm very mindful of the resources. And you said you have some measures in place, Manager Chris. So I just wanted to check in terms of, are we meeting our current service delivery timeframes, and have you got the resources that you need with the measures that you've put in place now to meet the growing statistics? Is that?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, we have got an item in I think, too, about plumbing resources on the agenda. I think it's 7.5. I just wonder whether
Yeah.
do you want to handle that at that time, or?
Yeah, no worries. We can do that then. I just looking at those statistics, it's really impressive how much your team has been dealing with, and just mindful of that resourcing. So keen to talk about the plumbing resources definitely as part of that report. No worries.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Thanks, General Manager and Manager, for that information. Okay, councillors, we have the Planning and Land Management operational update here to be received for information. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Potter. Seconder. Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. No further questions, councillors? Comments? Okay. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 7.4 at 38 is a petition in relation to Flying Fox Connolly at Blackbutt. And I might just hand over to you, Mr CEO, just to lead us into this one, if you could. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor Moen. So since the petition was received at the General, we've written back to Member for Nanango as she forwarded the petition to Council on behalf of the residents. So this is the first in probably a couple of reports. Flying foxes are highly regulated, I think would be a fair term, having dealt with them previously. I had the good fortune, actually, of just recounting being in Gayndah when the 300,000 little reds turned up, and then we had the blacks, and we had, for those who remember, 500,000 living next to the Golden Orange in the centre of town in Gayndah. And it's quite a difficult thing to manage because you have to, particularly if they're pregnant, and I'm guessing from some of the conversations anecdotally, there's young in the blackbutt colony. You can't do anything that'll stress the bat or the baby. There's very limited options sometimes in how to deal with them, but certainly it is an issue. I'm very appreciative of the petition coming forward, and can throw to the General Manager if he would like.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, that I didn't have anything really extra to add to that. We've just got this. The officers are just starting to go down and engage with the people in Blackbutt and try and get an assessment of the colony, as the CEO's alluded. Depending on the stage of maturity for the colony, it depends on what actions can be taken, and also the species of bat. But yeah, so we're just trying to get that information together, and if we need to, we'll get some assistance on those assessments. But
Thanks, Mr CEO. Thanks, General Manager. I was just privileged to Councillor Jones at our community meeting in Blackbutt the other day pointed out to me the issue. We were fortunate to be there just before around sunset, and you could just see the number of these flying foxes in close proximity to those homes along that Taromeo Creek area there, right in town. So it is certainly a big issue for those residents. Councillor Henson, over to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I'd just like to bring to attention, and it puts Council in an awkward position. There's flying fox colonies all over the eastern seaboard side of Australia, and they're very, very difficult to do anything with. And as it states there, the code of practice exists for the management of flying foxes, ecologically sustainable management of flying foxes. Now, if people want to go and Google that and read, there's some that code is seriously detailed and seriously hard for anybody or anyone as a council to implement too much. And can I just quickly, there's 65 species of flying foxes in the world. 7 of those species are in Australia, and Queensland have 3 of them, and they're protected. They are protected. Now these flying foxes, the cause of fatal diseases in Lysate virus and Hendra, and I needn't bring to anyone's attention the Hendra virus and what impact it's had on not only the horse industry but humans. And to date, there's been 7 lives lost with Hendra virus through flying foxes. So it does put us in an awkward position. They're extremely hard to do anything with. As a rural guy, again, I experience them myself, and our local fruit growers will support this as well. They do an enormous amount of damage to our primary producers and our stone fruit people as well, and they are dangerous animals and they're hard to deal with, so it puts council in a precarious position, and I can certainly feel for the people of Blackbutt and surrounds that they're a very, very hard thing to manage, but I'm sure our department and staff will do all they can to try and help in this situation. But I just wanted to flag those things for people's general knowledge, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that insight, Councillor Henson. Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, we had a big issue with them in Proston, and it's to do with, as far as I'm aware, and why they're identifying the flying foxes. Some of them are stay there all the time, and some of the ones that are there and then they move. And we had like thousands and thousands. Just it was incredible. And the Proston community, they were, it was in the back of Beresford Street, and they were just dropping stuff all over the roofs and just causing havoc. And council actually worked with the school to put up signage to stop, so the kids didn't pick them up if there was a dead one. And we tried, actually got the fire brigade to go around and try and scare them away with sirens. And as luck would have it, the next day after we did that, they left. But I don't actually think it was the sirens. I just think it was just they were the particular ones that it was time for them to move on. So they stayed for about 6 months, and then they moved on. And now there's just a core group, a smaller number, about less, and there are different species that stay there all the time, and this other group come back. So I think that's what part of that, identifying whether they're the ones that come and go. Yeah, but we had all sorts of issues. But currently, fingers crossed, they're not doing too much damage at the moment in Proston.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I was just trying to understand more just around, I didn't realise this was an issue in Blackbutt until we received the petition. So I was just trying to understand, had this been reported previously to council?
Yes, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I think our staff were aware of that there was previous colony there, but as Councillor Duff has explained, it may have expanded. So the situation at Proston is there's a resident population of say 300 of the little black bats. The issue at Proston, we had the little reds came in, and it was basically they were from northern New South Wales, and then it's through the drought area. So if there are areas where they are, they might the whole colony, and so there was a massive hundreds of thousands that had descended on Proston. We had good rain, we had flowering gums around, so they found a great spot here. So they settled, went through there, had the babies, had the young, and basically it was a situation of Proston had to wait out for that colony, and then as soon as the gums that are around here that they could feed on had stopped flowering, then they moved on, and the small resident population that don't cause a problem were left behind. So that's where we probably need to get that identification of see is it they have been attracted in because of whatever reason, what the species is. Have to look at what the issue with Proston, like where they were, was a protected scrub. So it wasn't a matter that we couldn't put a fire through. You couldn't trim the species. So sometimes removal of the habitat is a solution, but that's only going to shift them onto somewhere else. So the issues you do have if you hunt them from where they are living, potentially you might drive them into trees right in town. These ones are right on the edge. You probably can't remove all the area there on the creek bank either. So yeah, do need to get the understanding of what the colony is. But yeah, I think we weren't aware that they had the numbers that exploded, and I think they can go from not many to a lot in a very short space of time as a colony do come in from outside.
Okay. And just in terms of the petition itself, CEO Mark, I was just trying to understand how many people might have signed the petition?
Sorry, Councillor. Yeah, good question. I just couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It was significant as far as it's certainly an issue. If I can just add to General Manager's comments as well, the deforestation is often the only practical means of moving them, because if you stress them and as I said, there's quite And it's been noted by the other speakers there is, and having dealt with them previously, there is quite significant regulation around them and what you can and can't do. We ended up having to have a roost management plan for both Gayndah and Mandurah. When the issue was in Gayndah, particularly using that one because of the massive amount of them, council's only option at great expense, we tried bagpipes. They actually don't like bagpipes for what it's worth. When they come back in, and noise, sirens, fire, smoke, to move them on and move them out of the habitat. So many mornings of being up early before they come back to the trees to disturb them. Strobe lights, flashing lights, they don't like those. But in the end, we took every tree pretty much out of the riverbank, and then when they moved down to Oakey Creek, we took all the trees out there, and that was after getting in specialist consultants and working very closely with the department. That was the only practical management option that we had left to us. So they are a difficult problem to shift.
Thank you, CEO Mark. I've certainly learned a lot about bats this morning. I'm really impressed, Councillor Henshin, with your knowledge on the subject, actually. It's good to hear that the process with the petition has triggered this further assessment. So I just wanted to understand my final question, just in terms of when this issue or a report, when council can expect to see some, because I understand the complexities of managing the issue since we've discussed it, something back, because I'm mindful it may have been some time, and from the sounds of things, there are a number of people impacted by this.
Thanks. Yeah, General Manager.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I would expect we'd have a report back to the next standing committee. We just had the petition came to last council meeting, so when this report was due to sort of last Wednesday, so we had only just sort of become aware of it again, that the petition was there. So staff are out there probably at the moment, so yeah, we'd have something back to the next meeting.
Thanks, Councillor. General Manager, Councillor Henshin.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly, I'd like to reiterate, it's noted at the Code of Practice, and this is for the benefit of our public and the safety of them. The Code of Practice, and it states that undertaking activity or actions outside of the Code of Practice is not permitted, and that leads to anybody that's got these issues with these flying foxes, don't go near them or touch them. I just stated before about the diseases that they can carry or pass on to us or to animals. And just for, again, useless information, a flying fox will travel in a 50-kilometre radius of their roost of a night time. So if you put that in perspective as to where we're standing in this chamber, it's quite easy to, road travel might be 50 or 55 kilometres, but for a flying fox, that's probably 25. So they can cover some country. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Henshin. Councillor Jones.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Mayor. And as you alluded to earlier, you and I were down in Blackbutt the other night and witnessed it firsthand. I'd like to, or hopefully think that while we're putting this report together, there will be some action taken. And as the CEO alluded to, I just want to clear it up for the people. When he refers to taking away the vegetation, all that, it's not about removing the stumps or anything like that. It's just pruning the tops out of the trees, and the trees and the stumps and all that continue and will grow back. But just a little bit further information for the benefit of the councillors and everybody else. There's people living along the edge of that Taramio Creek that are going insane. Frankie Stretton lives there on the edge of that, and I've gone into his house and it is just putrid with the smell of flying foxes, urine, feces, the whole lot. It is absolutely appalling what these people are dealing with. And I take Councillor Duff's comments about Proston. Proston was a little bit different to the fact that they were up in the scrub that Pete alluded to, and a little bit, they did affect the town as such, but these people, these flying fox colony is right on the edge of town with houses right underneath their trees, right underneath the trees. They're listening to them squawk. They're going mad down there. So I really do want to implore on the council that we do need to prioritise this. And yes, in a perfect world, they'll move on and whatever else. But let me tell you, the people that live along that Taramio Creek in Blackbutt at the moment are really, really suffering, not just health-wise, but mentally as well. So I really do ask the council to really prioritise this and try and get a result sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Well said, and clearly a really important priority for council moving forward. It needs to be. General Manager, you just mentioned there that it is possible to get a report back to April. I'm just picking up on Councillor Jones's comments there in terms of us dealing with this as soon as we possibly can. Is that a possibility? Can we get that report by April without? Is that possible to do that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Yeah, we can get an initial. Like, we probably won't get an external consultant or a whether we get a species. But yeah, we'll be able to get something together as far as what we have found to date and what actions we can take. So,
Thanks,
yeah,
General Manager.
I think yeah.
Thank you. The report says that the recommendation is that council officers undertake an assessment. So you're comfortable that we could get that done within the next month? Yep, thank you. Okay, councillors. Look, we might just get this one up on the we have a recommendation that council officers undertake an assessment of the Flying Fox colony at Blackbutt and a report be brought back to a future standing committee meeting. I'd like to actually change that if possible and move a motion that council officers undertake an assessment of the Flying Fox colony at Blackbutt and a report be brought back to the April standing committee. Do we have a seconder for such? Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillors, anyone wishing to speak further on the matter before we go to the vote? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
My only question, Mr. Mayor, in terms of that report, just hearing what's been said, will that include what actions, like recommendations for council as to what actions we'll be able to take to actually help resolve this issue?
Yeah. Yeah, I would expect that we'll have options that are available to council. And
thanks, General Manager. Okay, councillors. So thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, General Manager, and to your officers for making that a priority over the course of the next month. I know you've got a lot of work on, so as Councillor Jones said, I'm sure it'll be very much appreciated by the community if we can consider those options and do what we can to deal with the matter as soon as possible. Councillors, the next item is 7.5, which is the Development Services Resources at 39. As the Mayor, I requested a resourcing report be brought to the March Community Standing Committee meeting in relation to the plumbing area, including service level and regulatory timeframes. And there is a report here now. So the recommendation is that this report be received for information. Of course, it's there as we see in front of us. So I might just go back to you, General Manager and Manager, to just run us through that report, if you could. Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, following the last standing committee where the Mayor had asked for a report to be brought back, so we have done some statistical testing on our timeframe. So looking at the timeframes is taken to assess, and we've included building as part of the plumbing as well. So two separate processes, but it's for the sake of this report. We did know that the team are struggling to keep up with the demand from late last year and early this year. We'd have to say that we aren't meeting our statutory timeframes in all cases. So we're putting together some reports that we can actually track those timeframes. Just finding it a bit difficult. We're just refining those because with the development application, there's a lot of we've got the clocks running on them, but you can have stoppages. So if we issue an information request, it stops the clock, and then in some cases, when the information is provided, then it'll restart. So the initial reports that we did, it looked like we were not meeting a lot of the timeframes, but when you look down and see that the information request had been issued, so the timeframes that have been extended for another 10 days. But in saying that, we're certainly not happy with the level that we're at, because the fellas are struggling with the number of applications, which is a good thing. In the building space, we have got a private certifier that we use as overflow. Obviously, with the industry going strong, his private business is going well too, so we're not getting the level of service from there that we actually require. They did give us an additional officer for a period just to deal with the Class 10s, So what we have done, we've been talking with the CEO, got approval, so we have actually commenced recruitment for new building certifier and plumbing certifier. We did have it, these two positions in next year's budget proposal, so we already had included them in the request for next year, but we actually have commenced that recruitment now, just with the additional demand that they are dealing with at the moment, that those positions are needed. We have got the fees that are coming in for building applications, plumbing applications, will offset those. That's, I think I've said in there, the additional cost of those services. So we've put together packs to go out, so that it is going out now. As I said, with the private certifier in the building, we're seeking that extra support from there where we can get. The officers are doing sort of long hours and trying to keep up as much as they can. The admin side of it is where we are probably going to look at now. We've had sort of changes with the maternity leave position and an admin position just finishing up at the end of this week in that space, which isn't helping either because we'll have a changeover of that admin support, which will potentially slow things down. But so we are just trying to throw some additional resources at it in the interim while we recruit for those extra positions. I'm not sure if you've got anything or whether we... Any questions?
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Probably just noting here that we are calling applications this week for an additional inspector for building and plumbing. So advertisements that'll go out this week. And also noting that we expect that the increase, that we'll get obviously more revenue through, so we're going to get those additional development application fee receipts coming in to the bank account from those additional certifications. So we're expecting that to a large extent that'll cover the cost of the additional two staff to manage that, which is great to see. Probably just want to know at this stage, what sort of time frame do you expect? Should we get a suitable applicant, what sort of time frame before we could see those two positions filled, roughly?
Yeah, I would normally with the recruitment you could look at eight weeks, say 3 weeks, and then a period for someone to relocate. Usually will take say a 4-week period for someone to relocate. So yeah, you're still looking at a sort of 2-month period before they would start. And so that's why we're still utilising the service of the private certifier and actually looking at where we can go to. So Logo, looking at the temp services for if we can identify some assistance in the plumbing area in the meantime.
Yeah, probably that's where my greatest concern is, that we can use building certifiers, private building certifiers if we can get them, but plumbing's a little bit more challenging as I understand it. Really keen to see that we can try and put some transitional arrangements in place for plumbing certification. I know that our plumbing certifier is run off his feet trying to keep up at the moment with the number of those coming through, so I'd be really keen to see something happen there because as you're saying, it could take 2 or 3 months to get these positions in place. Yeah. Councillor Jones?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is great news. I have been chasing this for at least 3 years, Pete. I've been talking and understanding the conditions that these certifiers and inspectors have been trying to work on. And as you've alluded to, Mr Mayor, it's more than likely or could possibly be cost neutral to the council. The extra income that will be sourced by employing these two people will certainly almost cover the costs of that. So I think this is a great step forward for our council, in particular the planning section and all that sort of stuff and everything else. And this, I get a lot of people, plumbers and builders, saying to me, mate, I understand, you need an extra person, all this sort of stuff. That's the comments I've been getting for 3 years. And Pete can acknowledge this. I've been trying, and the previous council, we're all trying to get extra people into this particular section of council. And yeah, can't be any happier to see this happening. So well done.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. And yeah, just again, General Manager, if you can, be very grateful if you could try and progress that temp services in buildings, in plumbing certification as best you possibly can. I think Council would be very grateful for that. Sorry, Peter, did you just want to add something there?
Would like to acknowledge that. We have acknowledged this for the issue with this industry is the boom and bust type thing. Like we've looked at 12 months ago, we looked at whether we could put on an additional officer. It wouldn't have funded itself then, so it's that balance between do we increase the fees to cover that position and we had this discussion with certain plumbers and saying, well, we could put a second officer on, we could lift our level of service, but that would come with a corresponding fee increase. So it's trying to get that balance, and obviously the boom has caught us. So we've just at the back of it, I suppose, because we weren't in front of it. So yeah, we do hope to catch up now. The other issue is the standard of application. Like if we get an application that got everything right, then easy can be processed quickly. But often, if we do have to do an information request or there's missing information, things aren't completed that does hold up the process from our end too. So, yeah, if we get the additional resource, and even if we've seen if the industry slows off, we still will be able to use that resource for other activities, trying to get that section up to speed.
Thanks, General Manager. At this stage, though, just for clarity of everybody that may be listening into this meeting, Council is not increasing our development application fees. What we are saying is that by being able to process more applications, we'll actually get more income because we'll actually have more applications going through the system. So please be clear, there is no increase to the application fee. They won't be reviewed until we do our fees and charges review as part of the 21-22 budget deliberations. I might just, and the other second thing is the point you raised there in terms of the plumbing certification and the amount of work that's happening. Clearly, we expect that's going to continue. So for the community, this is a decision that Council will be looking to make, and having advertised now, considering that there is actually more work happening now, and we expect that to continue for some time to come. So, yes, Manager, I'll come back to you shortly, Councillor Froloff, sorry. Chris, did you want to add something to that? Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah. I think just 2 points. It's good and well for us to appoint more inspectors, but we also need to resource them in terms of administrative support. So I do have the paperwork, and Mark and Pete just need to discuss it, but I think it's appropriate that we have another full-time administrative position to support those 2 positions as well. What we've been doing in the interim is through customer contact is, and I've been speaking to Caroline, the manager there, to be a bit more creative in terms of how we use our administrative staff so that we can actually share staff with them. If they have spare capacity, we can employ them to provide administrative support in building and plumbing, and vice versa. Excuse me. Secondly is just, should these 2 inspectors will cope and assist with permits, there's still a significant volume of work for compliance in terms of building and plumbing compliance. So I think when the permits slow down, these 2 officers won't be sitting around idle. We will be able to employ them to undertake all the compliance work that we have not been able to resource over time. So what I'm trying to say is it's going to support in the short term that strong permits, and I think if we can resource the building field in terms of our timeframes, the chances are that more people will use our service as well. Because building certification is one of those areas that the state government has basically privatised. So technically, we are competing with the private sector. The service we provide is exactly the same as the private sector service. Only difference is the private sector does not undertake compliance. So what technically happens is they take the easy work, and as soon as there's an issue, they disengage and it becomes council's problem. So most of those private certifiers don't have people locally who can do inspections for them. So their fee is typically higher than ours. But in the past, what I've noticed happening is we publish our building inspection fees, and the certifiers then publish their fees, and they just discount ours by a couple of %. So technically, there's not really competition, but anyway. So yeah, so there's a lot of work for 3 full-time staff members just in those 2 departments.
Thank you, Manager. Councillor Froloff.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I totally agree. I'm glad to see this on the agenda today because the building and plumbing departments are in my office in Anango, and I've seen firsthand the stress that they're under at the moment. And we've lost one of our amazing team members has gone off on maternity leave, and another member is leaving Friday to go up to Yeppoon to live. And yeah, they're quite under a lot of pressure, and it's really good to see that we're trying to help them out by getting more teams staffed in. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Franoff. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly agree with everything that's been said, and it's great to hear that we are in a position to gear up for the growth and the boom that we are experiencing at the moment. You know, looking at some of these statistics, 317, building applications from the 1st of July to date, and 217 plumbing applications. You know, that's a lot for a small staff. And I certainly remember back in the days when I worked for little old Nanango Shire Council, you know, we had a full-time plumbing certifier and inspector, we had a full-time planner, we had a full-time, building certifier and an admin team supporting those people just for the Nanango Shire Council footprint. And I know every council was the same, so it's quite incredible to hear that council has been able to manage for so long with the number of resources that we have. Certainly it's great to hear that there is an injection of resources, and I look forward to more conversations about how we maintain that and really do ensure we are gearing up our team to meet those statutory timeframes. You know, I know that that's not just important for us as a council, but also for the people on the outside. And I recently spoke with, just yesterday, a builder in Mitre 10. And I just want to thank and acknowledge our local building community because, you know, to be honest, he said, yes, look, I've had an application in council since January. I haven't had a response yet, but I understand. And I think that's really, really quite admirable of our local building industry to recognise that while it is a hindrance and a disruption for them, that they do understand, and you know, it's good to hear that we've got that good relationship with our local business community. My only question, just in relation to the report, I'm hearing you in terms of compliance. You know, the number of rural sewage systems across the region, I couldn't even imagine what that number is, but I know just in this small space of where I live, there's a significant number of those services. And I guess because I'm paying every quarter, you know, for somebody to come and inspect that, and that report comes through to council, you don't really see that work on the ground. So it does come to a significant cost to those living in rural residential, and it's interesting, you know, the compliance work that council has to do to maintain those systems. So I just wondered, is there any sort of fee for service or revenue that council collects for the maintenance of that compliance system for those rural septic systems, is my question.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we do charge what's called a lodgement fee for those service reports, but that lodgement fee only covers the maintenance of the register. So if there are service reports, for example, that show, so the plumber who does the service will indicate what needs attention and what defects there are. The plumber won't necessarily have the authority at that point in time to undertake the repairs.
Yeah.
So they will notify the owner that there's repairs that needs to be done. It then becomes a compliance issue for council, and that's where we do not at the moment have the resources to actually go and undertake that compliance. So, and there's no fee that we charge for that compliance. What we would do, though, is if the system is failing to such an extent that untreated effluent is spilling onto the ground, of course, it becomes a health issue, then we will put aside the permit work for a while or for a moment and go and attend to that emergency. But in general, following up, in general, following up on them, no, we don't have the resources to do that. So the only fee we collect, to answer your question, is when the report is submitted to council, is to basically lodge it in the register.
No, it's interesting. I look forward to further discussions in this space. It's good to hear that council's got a focus on that long term, those service standards and what can be done. But yeah, I can see the challenge, and yeah, I think it's great that this council's accepting that and doing what it can to influence better outcomes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, councillor. Thanks, manager. Okay, rightio. So, councillors, we've got that report there received for information. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, councillor Froelich, for seconder. Thank you, councillor Shoemaker. If there's no further debate, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Item 7.6 is a request for extension to the currency period for a material change of use and development permit. Councillors, I'm just going to provide some background on the report for the benefit of all, including those watching this committee meeting. So the existing approval over the subject site consists of the following aspects: a preliminary approval for an MCU overriding the former Kingroy Shire IPA planning scheme, and development permit for reconfiguration of a lot, which is 1 into 23 master lots and a park. The applicant made a request to extend the currency period until 25th of September 2024. The applicant requested, with a written notice on the 15th of November 2019, that the extension request be withdrawn after receiving informal advice from Council's Manager Planning that the extension is unlikely to be supported based on Council's assessment. Council could not consider the applicant's request to withdraw the extension request, as the Planning Act 2016 explicitly states that Council must decide the request. Council therefore decided on 19 February 2020 that the applicant's request lay on the table until a future meeting to provide the opportunity for the applicant to provide further information to support the extension request. The currency period of the existing approval was automatically extended for 6 months from 25 September 2020 until 25 March 2021 due to the event period COVID-19 by the Treasurer and Minister for Infrastructure and Planning. So as such, the officer's recommendation is that the committee recommends to Council that Council approve a 12-month extension to the currency period under Section 86 of the Planning Act 2016 for preliminary approval for material change of use, master planned community, and development permit for reconfiguration of a lot 1 into 23 lots plus parkland over land described as Lot 3 on SP 181686 at Bunya Highway, being the corner of Youngman Street and Taylors Road, Kingroy. Do we have a mover for such? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Froelich. Councillors wishing to speak for or against the motion? Councillor Shoemaker.
I just had a couple of questions, Mr. Mayor. It's quite an extensive report. So if I can, through the General Manager, and if there's any other information you can provide, that would be appreciated. So the recommendation at the end of the report says that the request for an extension to the currency period for 12 months is recommended due to significant conflict with current planning instruments, being the adopted South Burnett Regional Council Planning Scheme 2017, the LGIP and the Planning Act 2016. The approval time is time damaged with respect to the Planning Act 2016 Development Charging Framework. I just didn't quite understand. What does time damaged mean?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. As planners, we sometimes have very colourful words to describe certain situations.
Okay.
So what it basically means is, by way of background, the application was originally approved probably 12 years ago, before amalgamation, when there was a different, I think we were still working under the Integrated Planning Act, so that's 2 acts ago. And at that time, the application was probably appropriate in the sense that it tried to create a master planned community and try to override and be futuristic in terms of the Kingroy planning scheme. In the meantime, there's been 2 changes to planning legislation. We've brought in a new planning scheme saying that particular site is earmarked for emerging community, which means it's a future urban area. And in our local government infrastructure plan, providing services to that site is on the 15 to 20-year horizon, because our current assessment is that there's sufficient infill capacity in Kingroy to absorb additional expansion, and there's other service land that could subdivide. The issue with this application is that it triggers significant upgrades to council's trunk networks. Just to provide, because a council would be responsible to provide trunk sewer and trunk stormwater to this particular subject site. The impact and I'm summarising here, the impact of this application in terms of the demand could potentially trigger an upgrade to the major line down to the reticulation works, as well as potentially an upgrade of the Kingroy sewer treatment plant. That's the extent of this application. So while we're not against future expansion there, the current application in its current form is no longer suitable. And that's where the term time damage come in. It's just so old, and it's like a soccer ball being kicked along, and now eventually they try and score a goal, but the ball is flat. They're not going to do anything with it anymore. So and that's what we mean by time damage. It's just if we approve it and try and develop it now, that's going to be in conflict with our current planning scheme.
So, thank you. So just, hearing you there, and certainly understand it's a challenge for council moving forward, particularly if the area is to grow. In terms of council, so we're asking for an extension. Why are we not just letting the planning application run out, I guess?
Through Mr. Mayor, the applicant has, and it's probably not in I think I just mentioned in this report, apart from asking for an extension, also applied to change that existing approval in an attempt to address the concerns that we raised initially with in terms of the conflict with the current planning scheme. If you drive past the site, there's a major billboard up. It shows commercial development, probably the size of the Kingroy CBD on that site. Now, if that should eventuate, my view is that we will, for lack of a better term, kill the Kingroy CBD. And that's something we do not want to erode the integrity of our current town. And we're just spending all this money on streetscape. It's something we can't and don't want to afford. So I've been negotiating with the applicant to amend that change that they've sought to reflect our current planning scheme. So the extension for 12 months will keep the approval alive, purely so that it allows us time to negotiate. And we're having a meeting on Friday with the applicant and his consultants, so that we can actually, number one, make sure that that application will now achieve the outcomes and the visions we have in the planning scheme, that it's appropriately timed so that it gives council the opportunity to upgrade trunk infrastructure where it is required. The applicants are currently doing a water and wastewater modelling for that site. Now, they were supposed to give it to us by December, which hasn't occurred for whatever reason. So this 12-month extension, as I said, purely keeps the application alive, but it gives us the opportunity to negotiate and for the applicant to give us that information. The flip side of it is they want to do the change without going through public notification. And our view is that they don't meet the test under the Act to proceed in that manner. They have to can do the change, and we're supportive of the change, but they will have to go through public notification again because of that time-damaged aspects we were talking about. And one of the major changes is significantly reducing the amount of commercial land available there, probably down to not even a hectare, maybe less. So you have what you call a neighbourhood centre, sort of a local centre that just services that community.
Keep catching me out with my light today. Thank you. And just in terms of the LGIP and when Kingroy, when the plan is to upgrade Kingroy's trunk infrastructure, do we know that here at the moment, or is that something you could come back to council with some more information?
Through Mr. Mayor, yeah. So this revised application will give us, and that's part of the report that the applicants have to give us, is to identify exactly
What they need.
What they need to do. The Act provides that council can actually, you can't condition trunk infrastructure, but you can enter into an infrastructure agreement with the applicant whereby, because the applicant is basically bringing forward future council expenditure. So expenditure that we've got on our current LGIP for year 15, they may bring forward to year 5. So the agreement could be something along the lines of they provide the infrastructure to our standard, but when they develop, they get a discount on their infrastructure charges because they've provided that trunk infrastructure. So that's just one way, but it's subject to negotiations. And I suspect there will be a very complex, long drawn-out infrastructure agreement for this particular application if the developer gets to the point where he's physically trying to put services in and develop stuff on the ground.
And just my final question, Mr. Mayor, in terms of that negotiation period, you know, for an extension like this, like looking at the maps, it's a significant parcel of land. So with a development like this and through the negotiation period, can council look to that sort of, I guess, stage development of the area in some way, shape or form? Would that be part of the negotiation?
Through Councillor Schumacher, through Mr. Mayor, yeah. So with the change, I guess a lot of issues are open for discussion. And I must admit the applicants have been coming to the party and the table, understanding where we're going. I think it's probably because we've got very strong policy documents in our favour and strong council decisions in our favour. But certainly staging it would be on the forefront of our minds, particularly, and my gut feel at this stage is, or my opinion is, the staging will largely be based on the outcomes of that infrastructure report, because that's really going to determine where it's going to, where it may potentially bite us.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No further questions from me. Based on the information provided, I'm supportive of the officer's recommendation to extend that 12-month period so we can have some more conversations about this development. Thank you.
Right, thank you all. Okay, councillors, so we've got the motion there. We'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, 8.1 is the Waste Management Portfolio Report, and I'd like to now invite Councillor Froloff to present such. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Waste Compliance Officer position. Interviews for the combined fixed-term position of up to 6 months with the North Burnett Regional Council and Cherbourg Aboriginal Shire and the South Burnett Regional Council Waste Compliance Officer position are currently occurring. It is hoped that the officer should be starting in the second quarter of 2021. Funding for this joint position was from a successful state government grant, which will enable the partnering councils to focus upon illegal dumping and littering within the 3 jurisdictions. It is hoped that as a result of this injection of resources, that there will be a significant improvement in the level of illegal dumping and littering within the 3 council areas. And the capital works update is Maidenwell Transfer Station. Construction of the new automated waste transfer station out Maidenwell is expected to start in 2021-22 and be finalised by June 2022, but we are still awaiting to hear back from the state departments regarding the vegetation clearing and access to and from the main road. I'd like my waste management portfolio to be passed through council. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Frodoff. So we have the report received for information, moved by Councillor Frodoff. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Duff. Questions, comments, councillors? Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, 8.2 at 51 is the Environment and Waste Services update. And General Manager might just get you to give us a brief overview of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is from the Environment and Waste Services branch, so just the monthly statistics. So again, we've got the monthly comparatives and the year-to-date comparatives from 1920 and 2021. So, yeah, I'm not sure if there's any particular areas. Talking about animal, the animal compliance areas this morning, so you can see that we've had cumulatively up 80, 87 in the 2 years. So this year we're up to 80 animal attack complaints, 850 animal management customer requests. So yeah, the compliance fellas are dealing with a number of issues. So environmental complaints up to 197 year to date, 204 illegal overgrown allotments, 160 public health customer requests. So yeah, you can see year to date that we are getting certainly getting a number of customer requests for this very busy branch. These fellas.
Yeah, thank you. You know I love statistics, so I love this report. And I just had a question, just in relation to the waste collection services conducted. So it says for the 1st of February 2021 to the 28th of February, it was 56,589 services conducted. And the monthly comparative for the year before was 56,221. So there's over 300 extra services there. I just wondered, can that be assumed to be actually like completed houses or properties that now have waste facilities that didn't have them before?
Yeah, that's correct. Well, that would be one. So it would not necessarily be 300 because that's individual lifts and that. So, but over the 4-week period, then yeah, that could be another. And businesses may put on an additional bin here or there, but that is additional servicing. And you can see the year to date. So we're 494 as opposed to 473. So there are additional lifts. And people do have like in the optional area. So if you're outside the defined waste service areas, people can voluntarily opt into the waste service. So you do get some of that as they see the neighbours getting the bin. Someone else will join in.
Yeah, thanks, General Manager. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Pete, just the third dog permit apps down the bottom there, the very last thing, we've got a few there. How many dogs is an individual household allowed to have currently under the local laws for council?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it is two per property, so that's why you'd have a third dog application, is that they can actually get a permit to have that additional third dog.
Thanks very much, Councillor Jones and General Manager. So The recommendation is the Environment and Waste Services update be received for information. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Froelich. Seconder. Thanks, Councillor Henson. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.1 is the Rural Resilience, Parks and Gardens, Property and Facility Management and Indigenous Affairs Portfolio Report. And I'd like to now invite Councillor Duff to present such. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The first item is Parks and Gardens. Council's Parks and Gardens crews are continuing to undertake the large mowing schedule across the region, with a priority on the CBDs, including gardens, town entry and exits and high-use parks. Weed spraying contractors and council have finished spraying Kingroy, Cumbia, Maidenwell, Nanango and Blackbutt median strips, traffic islands and parks, and are due to commence work in Mergen and Wandai in the coming weeks. Slashing of the rail trail has commenced, with Mergen to Tinggora completed, with Kingroy to Wearable in progress. Spraying has been undertaken along the rail trail, with weed eating to commence in a couple of weeks to allow chemical to take effect. Park staff are continuing with their schedules for weed eating, spraying, toilet cleaning and rubbish collections throughout the region. COVID-19 signage remains in all parks and amenities. Cleaning processes are still being undertaken by contractors and park staff on each clean. Playground equipment is high pressure cleaned and disinfected monthly. Customer requests. Council, NRM and park staff are continuing to review and action customer requests within reasonable timeframes. Aerodromes. Twice weekly inspections are continuing at the Kingroy Airport. NOTAM remains in place, advising aircrafts of extended wildlife activity. Council's airport reporting officer is continuing to run the strip as requested by the Royal Flying Doctor Service prior to landing due to the kangaroo issues at the Kingroy Airport. Cemeteries. Ongoing general maintenance is continuing in all cemeteries across the region. Planting that was planned for Mergen and Wandai cemeteries has been put on hold due to the increase in mowing maintenance during this month. Planting now scheduled for late March. In dams, it is with sadness that we say goodbye to Doug and Kath Hughes, the Bunduma Dam managers, who finished with Council on the 26th of February. Council would like to thank Doug and Kath for their efforts and commitment during a challenging COVID time as dam managers and wish them all the best in their new endeavours. Doug and Kath will be staying locally and taking on another management role in Kingroy. Heath and Rowena Sanders, current managers at Bjelke Peterson Dam, will now take over the reins from Doug and Kath as newly appointed managers at Bunduma Dam. Council would like to wish Heath, Rowena and their staff all the best moving forward. And we've got Lake Bunduma, the facility, the occupants is 1,027 in 2020, in 2021 952, decrease of 75. Bjelke Peterson occupants 293, and up to in 21 735, an increase of 442. Property and Facilities Management. Contractors have commenced work at the Nanango Aquatic Centre this week. Installation of a new solar system by Zane Solar Pool Heating and replace expansion joints and painting of pool by Total Pool Renovations and replacement of chlorine bunded tank by Pacific Water Treatment and new marine carpet and non-slip vinyl by Anderson's Carpet Kingroy. The South Burnett Aquatic Centre will be closed for approximately 6 weeks. Local contractors Wards Electrical and Communication are currently working on the replacement of the gazebo roof in the front garden of Ringsfield House. Michael Chilcott Building and Renovations will commence on the 15th of March the installation on the back veranda schoolhouse. This project will make it much cooler and vermin-proof for the storage of the old South Burnett Times newspapers and historical files stored by the Nanango History Room Incorporated. Council has recently replaced the shade sails at Proston Showgrounds and Campdraft Arena for upcoming events completed by local contractor Christian's Upholstery Shop Kingroy. Council has also completed improvements to the Proston Showgrounds Pavilion to allow the committee to show displays and competitions safely and professionally in the pavilion. Geelong Hall floor sanding and polishing is scheduled for the 23rd of March by local contractor IP Flooring. Geelong Hall amenities water tank and stand has been replaced with a new tank. Council has completed the re-roofing of the Nanango Energy Centre and replacement of the solar system by local contractor Ultimate Electrical Solutions from Nanango. Council officers and contractors have completed the first stage of a security audit across all council facilities, compounds, depots, airports and water treatment plants. findings from the security audit to be presented to Council in March. Council has submitted a Building Better Regions grant application in the tourism infrastructure stream for Wandai Swimming Pool enhancements to the total value of $600,000. In Indigenous Affairs, General Manager O'May and I recently met with Councillor Bronwyn Murray from Cherbourg Shire Aboriginal Council to commence work on a reconciliation action plan for South Burnett Regional Council. We have scheduled monthly meetings to further progress this plan. We also have met with Neil Stanley to discuss and progress a yarning circle in Mergen. So that completes my report, Mr Mayor. So I'd like to move that report.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Well done. So we got Councillor Duff's move that the report be received for information. Do we have a second of as such? Thanks, Councillor Fradoff. Yeah, councillors, just questions, comments. Probably if I can just start off a couple of things there. Just want to acknowledge, the committee acknowledge the work that the Parks and Garden staff are having to do in relation to COVID, the additional work required with the daily routine, the daily cleaning and sanitisation routine that hasn't been a part of their workload in years gone by, but even with reduced staff numbers, the last 12 months, they've had to be doing a lot more work in that cleaning regime and sanitisation. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, General Manager, and pass that on to the staff. Thanks, Major. We do acknowledge that's an additional workload brought on by COVID. And the other thing is property and facilities management, a lot of work happening there. And it's great to see that of all the work that's happening there, the vast majority is going to local suppliers for the maintenance of council buildings. If you look at that list, Anderson's Carpets, Ward's Electrical, Michael Chilcott Building and Renos, Crittenden's Upholstery, Ultimate Electrical Solutions in Anango. So I'd just like to congratulate the procurement team and the facilities management team on having that work shared amongst our local suppliers. Great to see. Okay, Councillor Potter, over to you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. With regards to aerodromes, I don't know through you, Mr Mayor, whether this, I think this might be for General Manager O'May. We had talked a while ago about fencing the airport to stop the kangaroos from coming in. Where is that at and what's happening with that one? Because I know there was a bit of pushback from the committee at the airport, but with light of recent letters that we've had sent to council, we realise that this is a bigger issue now than ever, and we do not want to lose any lives over it.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, so, yeah, we did have fun. So we are talking with the airport users group because there was concerns about if we fence it, whether we just fence the problem in and cause a bigger problem. So we have got in the interim, we are doing we do a run whenever, say, a plane is coming in. So the ARO will do a run down the strip to clear the strip if there is kangaroos around. So yeah, again, that is really only an interim measure, and we do really need to come to a final position on this and do some fencing or some other work out there that we can reduce the issue, because it is an ongoing issue that we are facing.
Thanks, General Manager. Mr CEO, did you want to add to that?
I was just going to toss a coin for the General Manager who answered it, but actually had very good relationship building meetings with the 9.7 is basically the premise for this discussion going forward. There is work, there's a lot of really positive and good feedback from the user group and the flying doctors and a whole range of different parties, and there's many stakeholders at this aerodromes or the Kingroy Aerodrome, and the fencing will be part of, but there's certainly that master planning of the site, and we'll touch on a little bit more when we get to 9.7, but certainly the master planning of the site will resolve a number of these issues.
Yeah, thanks, Mr CEO. We look forward to getting some more information at item 9.7. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Duff, for the report. I just had a question. When we discussed Parks and Gardens in January, we discussed that the work around service levels would be done. There'd be a third quarter report come through in March, so I'm assuming that's at the end of the month with the financial report. Yep. So I just wanted a bit of an update. I had a question in terms of how we're tracking. We talked about setting KPIs and some sort of quality assurance program to understand how we're actually tracking in the space of parks and gardens. I just wondered what work's been done. If there's an update on that work, that would be really helpful through you, Mr. Mayor.
Is that on? Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Yeah, it's still in progress, Councillor Shoemaker, so it's not ready yet. So, excuse me, the service level review will be presented to council for you to decide on what service level you set. And we're still formulating that, and it's taking quite a lot of time to review current operations and staff numbers and equate them to we have a general understanding of the service standards that are expected, so we're sort of pitching it at that level, but it's not ready yet. But I will be bringing that back to council, and you will have an opportunity to review it in some quite significant detail, to be honest, because I want to show you the mowing program, you know, the equipment, I guess the equipment and how we approach the different levels of service or the different mowing pattern for different levels of parks. So you've got your high use parks and then your nature areas or your open space. So I know you've asked that question before, but it's still being formulated, and it will come back to council for a workshop type review so you can properly digest that information. Is that what you're expecting in that space?
Yeah, no, I was just probably trying to understand what the time frame was for this moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping that it will be done in the next sort of 2 months.
Okay.
I think is that reasonable from council's perspective? Because it's really dependent on the budget, but the budget will set a certain level for the next 12 months, but we still need to do further work on, I guess, ramping it up over time.
Yeah, I just see probably it goes hand in hand with the budget, and certainly, you know, that discussion around service levels, what we would like versus what we can afford, how we're tracking, you know, where are the gaps. Probably, you know, really, I'm really keen, and I know my fellow councillors are too, to unpack that conversation further. So
You're right.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I was just going to make a comment. I suppose what we were looking at is actually drilling down into the operations a bit more and looking at changes. So initially when we looked at service levels, we said, well, we can go from a 3-week mowing service to a 2-week or one, and that can easily just add additional resources, or we can halve our service level by doubling up our resources. But I suppose we want to go into further and look at, say, changing operations. So it's not just a matter of doubling our resources, meaning halving our time. So we get looking at, and that's where I think the Mark and the team are looking with the plant and how we do things. So actually looking more about trying to gain some of those efficiencies that we can build into it, rather than just looking at resources. Well, if we double our resources, we can halve our response time. So that's probably why the delay in bringing it back is actually looking at some of the efficiencies, and so meeting with the plant, meeting with the infrastructure guys, so looking at slashing bigger mowers and how we do things, and even just getting some of the expectations to the guys about this is the expectation, the standards that are expected, rather than just what we're doing currently. So yeah, so we are, it probably is taking longer than we initially thought, but we're looking into it a little bit deeper.
yeah, no, I completely understand, and I think there's you know, it does work hand in hand also with the work that council's keen to do around looking at our assets overall and how we can, I guess, look for those operational efficiencies. So yeah, I'm hearing you. I just I recognise it's really important work as we enter into the budget, and it is really great to hear. I do commend you for the work that's happening. It's great to hear that you are looking at the operation and looking at those opportunities, not just looking for additional resources, but looking at what plant. And, you know, I know I go on and on about continuous improvement and innovating, and I read in the council agenda today that there is an example of that, which is just music to our ears. I think congratulations and thank you. I know it's such important work, and I'm really looking forward to unpacking that further as we go forward. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Just in terms of your question, I might just ask Mr. CEO to add some commentary to
Yeah,
that.
mine will be fairly succinct. The resolution in January was quite specific, and there will be a report as part of the operational plan in April. So, full stop.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. That clarifies that. So we'll get that report in April, and that'll line up, as you said, hand in hand with the budget workshops that will be conducted in April and May. Thank you. And the review and reporting will be part of that planning process. So, yeah, thank you very much, Mr CEO. Councillor Potter, you gets clarified that. Okay, councillors, we've got that here now. It's been moved and seconded. Let's put that to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Sorry, thank you all. Okay, let's move on to 9.2, which is actually the Parks and Gardens update at 56. Councillors, you've had that for a little while to have a look through. Do we have a... So the report is there. It's an operational update to be received for information by the committee. Do we have a mover for that? Thank you, Councillor Duff, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Potter. Councillors, questions, comments in relation to the update? Councillor Duff?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I'm really pleased with how we're progressing and trying to find some efficiencies rather than just throwing more money at this particular area. And there's an example on page 60 of the report about skid steer mower, looking at a business case for that because of the so many staff in in that Cobb's Gully in Mergen, for example, and trying to get more efficiency there. So, yeah, and I just wanted to also flag that on the weekend, I was at a International Women's Day in Mergen, and there was a lady there from out of town. She was from the Sunshine Coast, and she was just saying, and I actually got it on video recording, that how our region looked. She said it was fabulous. She said the Parks and Gardens were second to none, that she thought we were a vibrant region, that we had fantastic people, just wonderful, clean amenities. And I just thought, well, wow, sometimes we criticise ourselves and we just think, we're behind the eight ball. But when you get someone from outside our region actually just saying stuff like that, it really gave me a lift. And I actually played that video to General Manager O'May and Acting Manager Watt, because I just think sometimes we're hard on ourselves, and I do think there's certainly room for improvement, certainly and efficiencies, but just sometimes we need to say, well, we're getting there. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. And I can just add to that that this is a work in progress, and it's important that we take our time to get this right, and follow the lead that General Manager Meehan set in terms of the roads program. Councillor Jones didn't rush into that, took time, planned it properly, and then what we've seen is ongoing long-term positive outcomes as against short fix solutions that can often bounce back on you. So, yeah, look forward to the report in April, but keep up the great work. Similar to Councillor Duff, I've heard some good reports back also in terms of the communication coming out of the Parks and Gardens team from residents who are saying, oh, look, one of the staff rang me, or Manager Mark rang me, and we had a wonderful conversation, explained it's going to take some time, but was very cooperative, very communicative. And, yeah, I think there's a really good vibe out there in the community. So there's good work happening, and we're seeing a difference, and thank you. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Peter and Mr. CEO, for all the work you're doing, because I know you're all driving this with the, obviously, under the support of council. The other thing, of course, is too that, yeah, we do need to spend, if I can just say, we do need to share in the positive messaging. And I wrote about this in the South Burnett Today paper on Thursday. We need to share the positive messaging as a community. Sometimes it's easy to be critical of council on social media, and that doesn't do anything to promote the best interests of our region, because people outside of our region read that stuff. So I think we all need to, as a community, get behind sharing all these positive stories about our region. And, I was in Brisbane yesterday meeting with ministers and meeting with senior staff from different departments, and, a number of them mentioned that they'd been through South Burnett travelling, and what a beautiful region we've got and how fortunate we are. So, yeah, we have got a lot to be grateful for, and I think, Councillor Duff, it is a work in progress, and perhaps if you talk to that nice lady, thank her for that, and tell her that she ain't seen nothing yet. Okay. So, yeah, any other councillors wish to make comment on that? Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments that have been made, and certainly I agree we don't want short-term, short-fix solutions, so I commend the team on the process. I am thrilled about the parks, the innovation that you've reported on here for Cobb's Gully, and I just encourage you to keep that information coming to council, because I can see here, you know, maintenance that takes 16 hours, 7 labourers plus machinery, and is maintained 4 times a year, annual cost of 35,000. You know, that work going through that business case, I'll be really interested to see, well, what's the saving? And, you know, what's council's process in terms of tracking some of these savings? I think it would be really valuable, noting the work that you are putting into this long-term program and deep dive in our Parks and Gardens team. It would be great to be able to go back to the community and actually say, well, you know, we have managed to improve our service standards, and by the way, we've saved you some money. And this is how we've done it. So I'm really keen to see this information keep coming through, filling through to council. Certainly, I think it's important that we have it, we're ahead of it, and we can be sharing it. And certainly I'll be sharing this story. I'm really impressed. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Shoemaker. It's really good to note here, future works, you know, the planting program around our beds, garden beds, has had to be delayed due to the fact that we're taking some time to carefully look at species selection with some industry, local industry expertise input with our own horticultural staff to make sure that we get the right species selected for our climate and for our location. But those works will be commencing and throughout the month of April. We expect to see 4,500 plants needed with a cost of approximately $20,000 for that planting program. The other thing I want to note here is that the number of capital projects here, and for those watching, the number of capital projects that this council, with the support of our staff, is undertaking. We've got different funding rounds here, and I know in talking with other councils, councils right across Queensland are finding it very challenging to get all of these projects completed by the acquittal date of 30 June, particularly with the W4Q Round 4 money that the government provided to get the economy stimulated in our rural regional communities. And we got that $3.3 million. Now, it's great to get the money, but it's a lot of work for our staff. And if you just look at this program here, you know, we've got lighting upgrades to Aerodrome at Wandai. We've got the Geelong water supply, which I know Councillor Henson's working on with the staff. We've got amenities upgrades at the CTC Youth Park, park work happening across a number of parks. We've got, statues and signs and a whole range of things happening there. Duck point installations, Wandai Coronation Park, we've got the development happening there. Bunkhouse relocation at Boondooma Dam, which has happened. We've got boat ramps at Yallakul, tennis courts. Look, it's just a range of things. I could talk on Anango Butter Factory, Apex Park, Kingroy, Wandai Skate Park, Reg McCallum Park, Proston, the railway park at Proston. You know, the list just goes on and on and on. And I've only probably mentioned half of them. So there's a tremendous amount of renewals and capital upgrades happening across our region. There's a lot of planning and work goes into that. So congratulations to the staff. You're doing a tremendous job, Mark, and I'd like to thank them for that and keep up the great work. We'll look to see those projects come to fruition over the course of the next 4 months. So thank you. Mike, before I go to Councillor Jones, I could see you looking and nodding. Did you want to add any commentary around the planting program or the capital works program? And we'll come back to Councillor Jones. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Just to respond to Councillor Shoemaker, if you would have seen them doing the Cobb Street Gully work, the first thing that came to my head was risk. Okay, so don't worry about time and money. Okay, time and money is there, but it was the risk. Okay, so I guess the focus now is that everything starts with a risk-based decision, but I think the difference might be that council has a focus on providing those workers with the resources they need, and I don't think that's been there. And I'm not saying anything about the past, but there's just a focus on this. It's a priority. It's in your corporate plan. That's the difference. So we can work with that going forward. The plantings program was discussed at the portfolio meeting with the Mayor and Councillor Duff. So that's an update on that wording in that report. It's progressing now, so that's underway. So we're doing a standard plantings program. We're not doing the full Monty thing. It's a bit like we're populating those things because it's one of those ones where we don't want to go in and complete that whole project right now. We're holding our cards close to our chest so we can maybe do that in the next period where it's done more substantially with better resources that we would be getting, because we're backfilling those particular positions, if that makes sense, those vacancies that we talk about. So we're doing the plantings program, but it's just at a particular standard at the as discussed at the portfolio meeting, but it will be, I think, sufficient for our needs at the moment. That makes sense.
And that was a really good discussion we had about just transitioning into the planning program. So with the resources we've got, we start the program, we get a moderate planting campaign underway to start to get some colour through our communities with the shrubs and the flowers, but that we hold back on the full program until we understand fully the extent of the resources required. So thank you, Mark, for that. Okay, Councillor Duff, before we wrap up.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to say it's the extent of the resources required, but also to try and get it right, because we're still working with some of the local horticulturists and community members that have got that are keen to help to try and get the right species. So we're trying to get where we can drought tolerant plants, native plants. There's a debate about using all native plants. So we're just trying to do, as Mayor Otto said, to get that right before we do a full-blown project. So we just wanted to get some colour, get a bit of stuff happening, but then get it absolutely Mickey Mouse. So that's the plan. So looking forward to an exciting time ahead.
And of course, to wrap up, we're remiss not to mention the amount of work that's been going on with the mowing across the region, both with our staff and the contractors that you've had to engage. Manager Mark, well done. Been a massive job, a lot of hectares out there. So, and the grass has been growing rapidly now. We've got a bit of a dry period, sadly, but I suppose the mowing slowed down. We can hopefully catch up. So, well done. Thank you. Councillor Jones.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. Just quickly, I wanted to just ask and refer to the Burnett Lions Park signage upgrades, scope confirmation required for Burnett. Are we referring to that big sign coming in from the top of the range, in the one that we're going to repaint and reword? It's just there on the first page, fourth or fifth one down, Kingroy, Burnett and Lions Parks. In the Parks and Gardens update, yeah.
Through you, Mr Mayor. That's regional tourism and signage boards for those ones, Councillor. So that's they're scheduled for Q4, and it's not the one on the highway. Is that the one you mean? The one on the highway? That's merely a Benarkan town entry sign on the highway. Okay, but sorry, I hope this answers your question, but those, the Benarkan sign is more of a tourism guidance sign to say you are here and this is what's in the local area to... Correct, yes, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Jones and Manager. All right, councillors, we've got that there. So put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Move on now to the properties operational update at 62, item 9.3. And councillors, you've got that there. Councillors, any questions, commentary before we progress? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just one question from me, just in relation to the Kingroy swimming pool refurbishment, concept plans, engineer drawings, etc. I know we had a workshop last year at the swimming pool in the Memorial Park, which was brilliant, with councillors who were able to attend, and we're talking about that concept planning. And I just wondered an update as to what the next steps are or where we're at with that project, when we may be able to come back and do another workshop or alike.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, so we really haven't progressed that one since we had that initial meeting. So it's at a stage we're looking at that will be looking for not next year's budget. What's that? 21-22. Probably looking at 22-23 budget for the actual work. So really, just the priority has been a lot of the other projects. So it is one that we really do need to get the concept plans, engineering drawings, but it has probably just taken a bit of a back seat with the BBRF applications and delivering the other projects. But yeah, that's the concept plan for that. But we're still probably 18 months out from that one, so that work is still underway, but haven't really progressed. There will be probably more than a series of workshops on that once we do have something to bring back to council.
Thanks, General Manager. Okay, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to mention the Wandai Memorial Pool application. I just think it matches the Coolangatta sale yards in excellence. A lot of work went into it. Councillor Henson and I were the two councillors involved with that particular project, and just really wanted to have a big shout out to the staff and all the people who helped with that. And we had a community consultation, and there's been a lot of work gone into this, and I think it's an exciting project, and fingers crossed for this one as well as the Coolangatta sale yards. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Duff. It's really important you point that out. And for the camera, there it is. That's the application that's gone into the BBRF for the Wandai Pool upgrade. And as you said, I've just been looking through it as you're speaking, and it's very comprehensive. There's a lot of data, a lot of information in there. So again, congratulations to the staff involved in bringing that together in such a short time frame. Well done. Okay, councillors, so the recommendation is that the property's operational update report be received for information. Do we have a mover? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Seconder, thanks, Councillor Froloff. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Next item is 9.4, Council Advisory Committees at 67. Mr CEO, I might get you to lead us in on this one if you could. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. There was some discussions previously about either Parks and Garden Advisory Committee, and then there was a further discussion about an NRM Advisory Committee. So I'll throw to the General Manager. This report was put in today that is being progressed. But given Council's corporate plan is coming particularly in this space, and there may be what outcomes come out of that is probably leaving the advisory committee until the corporate plan and then the org structure is settled. And then there's also the discussion about future portfolios and where responsibility sits to align them. So the advisory committees, the departmental structures all align. So it certainly isn't forgotten, and this was a report today to inform Council it's not forgotten. There's work being done on it, but whether we're ready just to jump the gun now and create something and change in 3 months, or it's just better to leave to the corporate plan. So our recommendation was to let the corporate plan process and the org review process run, and then fold the committees in behind that for 1st of July kickoff.
Thanks very much, Mr CEO. Look, in light of that commentary, I think you make a lot of sense in what you say. So as such, I'm happy to move that the committee recommends to Council that as part of the development of Council's corporate plan, that consideration be given to the establishment of Council advisory committees. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Thank you. Okay, councillors, those wishing to speak for or against, as the mover, I'd just like to say that completely in agreement with our CEO, has a very good knowledge of our corporate governance processes. Clearly, we bed down the corporate plan. We get a clear understanding as to what our strategy is. Once we know what that clear strategy is, then we can determine what our organisational review process, what the structure should look like out of that. And then, as the CEO said, on the back of that, fold in the appropriate council advisory committees to pursuant to that corporate plan. So I think that's a really thorough, proper process from my point of view. Other councillors, your thoughts?
Mr Mayor, if I may, sorry, I should have mentioned,
CEO.
My apologies for not mentioning it. The two that we've already got in train, arts and regional development, actually don't impact any of the staffing models, so they're pretty well embedded, so they're still progressing. There'll be a further report on the terms of reference of those two. So quite a reasonable question would be, why are you doing those two and not the other two? Well, there's maybe, depending on where the corporate plan falls, there may be some structural change or maybe changes in this space. So the other two have just got clean sailing, so they'll go through. And again, probably an effective date of 1st of July by the time they get up and running. But there'll be reports on the terms of references for both regional development and or draft terms of references in the Arts Committee next week to the Exec Finance Corporate Standing Committee.
Oh, thanks very much, General Manager. That's great. So we'll see those reports next week on those two. They'll progress as previously determined, and we'll see how we go with these ones. Councillor Duff, your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to have it the wording changed, but the reason I was keen to progress something was we already have that small group that are meeting about the parks and gardens and trying to get some species and they're the horticulturists and different, and some key players interested in our planting program, and so that's why I was wanting to sort of and through our portfolio, I'll talk to the general manager to try and also acting manager to try and maybe formalise that committee a little bit. But I'm happy, I think we can just keep on meeting if that's okay in an informal manner, and then just see where it lands after the corporate plan is finalised.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. That sounds like a good solution if you're happy with that, General Manager.
Yeah, no, I would, really support that. I think we can continue to meet informally with the those key players and bring the advisory committee on as with the corporate plan.
Thanks very much. Other councillors? Go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. Okay, 9.5, Ringsfield House, Nanango, future management option at 68. And again, Mr. CEO, General Manager, might just get you to give us a bit of background here before we go into debate. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the Ringsfield House management and the future operations has been an ongoing discussion topic for council. We had went out for the expressions of interest and weren't really successful in that. So really wanted to open up the discussion with council on where they thought the views for the future operations for this facility was. Obviously, establishment as advisory committee was one option. So yeah, the manager of properties put down a few options here that we could look at for as council. So whether we do go an advisory committee route, or whether there's alternative management options, or whether we just take it on as a council-run facility. So yeah, it probably is really open. I know there's still people looking at potential leases through the. I think there's rumours of people that are still interested in a lease, but we just haven't been able to bed down anything in that space. So it was really just bringing it back to council to get this the debate started again on where we do go with Ringsfield House.
Thanks, General Manager. So the recommendation there, Council, is that Council investigate options for the future operation and management of Ringsfield, including A, establishing an advisory group and operation of the facility by community group, B, identifying alternative management models independent of Council, C, as a Council-operated facility, and report back to the April meeting of the Council Community Standing Committee. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Duff. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Froloff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? Questions? No. Councillor Duff, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm really keen to progress this. I think that this has been a long-term concern for council and also the community. Whenever I go to Nanango, talk to people, and I know that Councillor Froloff would feel the same, that we need to progress this. There's different community members keen to see something happen, and this is just a way forward. If it was me, but I'd leave number C out, because I don't think that we ever want to have it just as a council-operated facility. I don't think that option C should be even on the table. I think it's the other two. So am I at liberty to move an amendment or to get that?
I believe so. Councillor Duff, who you've moved it, so you can change that if you choose to.
I'd like to leave it the C out. I don't think it ever should.
Okay, you'd like to take C out?
Yes, take C out.
Councillor Froloff, what are your thoughts? Are you comfortable with that as the seconder?
Sorry, I would have liked to have kept C in, just to have a look and see what Manager Leanne Peterson has her thoughts. I have been talking to Leanne about Ringsfield House, and she has got some really good ideas. It's not that council's going to take over, but if we have a look at each option, because Ringsfield House is one of the main attractions in Nanango, and we've really got to seriously think about who we're going to put in there, that it's viable and it stays viable.
Thanks, Councillor Froloff. Back to you, Councillor Duff.
We can leave it in there. I'm just declaring I don't think it is an option. I think it's going that the community wants to help drive this, but I'm happy if it's in there because we can look at all alternatives. So I'm keen, But I'm just keen to get this progressed, get it on the table, get it happening, because I'm thinking everyone's frustrated. I'm frustrated about what's happening currently. It wasn't open on the weekend. I had people, a lady contacted me and complained about the fact it wasn't open. So yeah, I'm just really keen to get this on the move. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. I think it's a good, my view is that it's a good recommendation. It talks about advisory group, which is important community engagement framework, and also operation by the facility by a community group. And clearly that's going to be the first port of call and the option, as Councillor Froloff, I think, has said, but we want to keep our options open should that not be successful. Clearly Council has appetite for making sure that that facility is an ongoing part of the Nanango and South Bennett community. It is an important historical asset. We want to keep our options open to make sure that that can be preserved. So thank you there. Councillors, if you're happy with that, I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thanks, everyone. Okay, we'll move on to 9.6. Where are we? It's page 70, which is a trustee permit terms between council and the Bunya Valley Land Care Incorporated. I'm just conscious of time, councillor, so I'll present this one. So at the general meeting in February, council resolved to enter into a lease agreement with the Bunya Valley Land Care Group to manage Karoo Park, with lease conditions to be brought to the next community standing committee. Terms have now been prepared. They are as presented there. Officer's recommendation, items 1 to 9. A couple of key points for those watching. Number 1 is that it would be a non-exclusive trustee permit for the purpose of landscaping with the Bunya Valley Land Care, with conditions including a term of 3 years at $75 per annum plus GST. The Bunya Valley Land Care Group under these terms would bear all costs of the project and all subsequent operational and maintenance costs, including the mowing, the weed and pest management, and the utility charges, including any connection fees. They will not impede pedestrian access from David Place, and they must incorporate existing infrastructure into the concept plan and not undertake any works that may affect council-owned infrastructure. So a couple of key points there. So councillors, do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Potter. Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a question in regards to the recommendation. My concern is in the report, it clearly states on page 72 the plan that the Bunya Valley Land Care Group have provided delivery in 3 stages of earthwork, soil preparation and maintenance. The Bunya Valley Land Care Group have committed to carry out maintenance for up to 3 years with the exclusion of mowing. And then in the officer's recommendation, it says that we're asking the committee to bear all subsequent operational and maintenance costs, including the mowing. So I just wanted to understand what conversations have been had in regards to those 2 clear conflicts in the report through the general managers.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. That's an excellent observation, actually. You've picked that up. Well done. Yeah, General Manager, what's happening there? What's the plan?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I actually wasn't fully aware of that. I know officers have talked to the Bunya Valley Land Care Group and went through the conditions with them, so I'm not sure whether they didn't pick that up or not, but we did have initial contact with them regarding the revised, or with the proposed conditions. I know they would have rather that if we were contributing funds to it. I know that was a comment, but actually didn't get any comment back about the mowing. So I suppose I can take that on notice. Or have you had any?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with those ones, we normally provide a quote to mow in those particular parks. And I think on this particular occasion, without the manager being here, that we were requested to provide a quote. It was quite prohibitive for us to do the regular mowing with the distances involved and the various costs for it. So we tried to put it back onto the lessee to just take responsibility for mowing.
Can I just intervene as the chair? Just conferring with the CEO. I think Councillor Shoemaker's raised a really good point here, and there might be a misunderstanding between the group and between council. And Councillor Shoemaker, what would your thoughts be on if we left this lay on the table and brought it back next week, next Wednesday, and built it into the Exec Finance and Corporate Standing Committee meeting as a special item? Would you be comfortable with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I would certainly like to clarify that because I do feel in the conversations I've had with some of the committee members that we do need to be clear with that matter. I'm very mindful with this park that it is still a public space and facility. So whilst the leasee will have responsibility over it, I probably still want to understand, and I don't want to hold it up because I know this has been going through for years, and I'm really passionate about seeing the outcomes here. I think the group have got a great plan, and if anything, I know we've identified in our corporate plan, we want to see more Green Army projects, more partnerships like this where community groups are coming together and helping us as a council really reinvigorate spaces. And I can see in that Karoo Park, I'm hearing General Manager Watt in relation to the prohibitive costs around mowing, but it's my understanding that we're actually currently paying those costs anyway. So if those mowing costs are the difference between this project going ahead and council reinvigorating a space that is underutilised, that we are currently fully maintaining, versus the project going ahead with council, our partnership or contribution is to do some mowing of the facility. I really want to understand that further. So I'd definitely like to lay this on the table. I do not want to see this group's last 3, 4, 5 years of trying to work with council and trying to get this up diminished or them actually walk away all over the simple discussion of mowing, because the reality is, regardless of whether this happens or not, council is still mowing that facility. And I think there are plenty of community projects that are very similar to this where council has got some sort of level of buy-in and the outcomes for the community are going to be great. The plans that group have put together are exceptional, and I just want to really understand that better. My recommendation would be for the chamber, and I will be supporting that council actually supports them with the mowing. I think it's too big of a commitment for them to maintain that to community and public safety standards. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Councillor, I think what we'll do here, Councillor Joseph, Councillor, would it be your preference that we move on to a procedural motion to lay the matter on the table until
Yes.
next Wednesday?
Yes, please, Mr. Mayor. I'll move a procedural motion that the matter lay on the table until next Wednesday's council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. And Councillor Potter, you happy to second that as you seconded the original
Yes, Mr.
motion?
Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a mover, a seconder, procedural motion. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, we'll move on now to item 9.7, which is the Kingroy Aerodrome Airpark proposal. And I'd like to hand over to CEO Mark, who I know has been doing a lot of work on this, to give us a introduction. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks,
CEO.
Mr. Mayor. We've touched on most of the points before. The two proponents, I had a call actually only yesterday again, so the two proponents that have been talking about the Sky Park have made it, have been in contact with the user group and glider club out there, so which is wonderful. They're all actually coming together and they're all talking and working together, so we'll have those three groups or three parties now talking to us. So rather than me just waffle on, we covered most of the points I think before, unless there's any questions, but we're seeing a gathering of the clans out at the airport and actually people approaching the debate in good spirit, and I think we can actually progress this.
Thanks very much, Mr. CEO. So, councillors, there is a recommendation there that the committee recommends to council that council commence a process to undertake a master plan for the future use and opportunities for Kingroy Aerodrome. Do we have a mover? Thank you, Councillor Potter. A seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillors wishing to speak for or against? No? Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, we do have one late item to include at 9.8 as a late report, and 9.8 is the request council support for an application for Building Better Regions Fund BBRF Round 5 by AAM Investment Group. Might hand over to you, Mr. CEO, again, just to give us an introduction. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, firstly, as it's a matter that wasn't pertaining to the agenda and so late, so To a degree, we're stretching our procedural wings here as far the late agenda goes. There needs to be first a procedural resolution that council will deal with the matter because it wasn't in time for the agenda preparation.
Thank you, Mr CEO. I hereby move a procedural motion that council deal with matter 9.8 as a late report to council at this committee meeting. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duff. Those in favour? Procedural motion carried. Okay, we'll now attend to 9.8, requesting council support for an application for BBRF round 5. Over again to you, Mr CEO. Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I might hand over to either the council or others. We had a request that came in, I think the call was Friday late, and then information came through. There has been some information circulated by email to councillors. That information is confidential. So hence it doesn't form part of this report because it would form part of any application. It really is, we're seeking council's direction. If the question is it possible? Yes, we would have to, same as the discussion previously about Swickers, being a private entity, we would have to auspice it. We would also have to think seriously about who we would get to put the information into the portal. We can't hand over our portal to a third party. So you would have Thursday, Friday to get it in. And I suspect the only reason this opportunity has presented itself, and please correct me, Council, is the extension of the closure date by the week. So it would have to be in by this Friday, but really now there's nothing much more I can add except I know more about the proposal than what I've circulated to councillors, and we're in your direction as to whether you want to put it in this round or go for the next one.
Okay, councillors, let's have a conversation about this before we go to a motion or such. Does anyone want to provide some background? Councillors provide background, further information for the benefit of council. Thank you, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was contacted by Gavin Tickle from AAM, and yeah, he said because they had already, I think they'd been already working on the application, but they weren't able to get it in, but because of the extension, then they were wanting to have a go because they had the extra week, and but those applications can't be put in by private enterprise. It has to be put through council. So yeah, he's asked me whether we would consider that. So I contacted CEO, and he said we could make it a late agenda item, which we have done. And I did say to Gavin that we couldn't guarantee, I couldn't guarantee that it would get through council, but they're progressing the application and hoping that we would support it. So that's pretty much.
Councillor Duff, when was the request for this received? Do we know approximately how long ago?
It was just late last week.
Late last week, and so thank you, Mr CEO, for moving to get this to today's meeting.
Yeah.
But it was received late last week after the 5th of March initial deadline. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
okay.
correct.
All right, just want to clarify that. Councillors, thoughts, comments? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. It's not that I'm against this proposal, but I'm just against, I won't support this today simply because we as a council have a BBRF fund application going in for a council-owned facility, and to me this is a private enterprise with exactly or very, very, very similar outlines and whatever else. I would support it in round 6 or whatever, but just not. I won't support. I can't support it today on the fact that we're putting in a private enterprise against a council-owned facility, and we're asking for the same money for the same purpose and that sort of stuff. Happy to support it in future rounds. They're certainly not against it, but just the timing of it, I can't convince myself to put a private enterprise set of cattle yards up against a council-owned set of cattle yards that we're trying to improve and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I won't be supporting this today.
In light of that, Councillor Jones, would you be prepared to move a motion that council does not support this application for round 5? So we clarify for round 5. Would you be happy to move that motion?
Yeah, correct. I would like to move a motion, Mr Mayor, as you said, that we don't support this particular application in round 5, and in future rounds certainly look at it, and that'll give the AAMI people and all that sort of stuff, and we'll have more time around it and to prepare and all that sort of stuff to get a better application on their behalf. But I guess move the motion that we don't support in this, and look look to future rounds to support or something along those lines.
And to look to future rounds for appropriate consideration.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. Thanks, councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder for councillor Jones's motion? Thanks, councillor Henshin. Okay, let's go to debate on this matter. Those wishing to speak for or against, councillor Duff, proceed.
I'm actually speaking against the motion because I actually I was concerned about exactly what councillor Jones has suggested, that would be competing, and I was told that by Lou's office that it's not actually a competition, it's just the quality of the actual, there'll be like hundreds of applications and they just put them up on their merit, and the other one is from the political side, it's actually in Lou's area, it's not actually in David Littleproud, so if anything comes into it, it's more about spreading it out across their different electorates rather than individually competing against each other. So that's why I don't think it's not a competition, a sale yard against a sale yard.
Thank you, councillor Duff. My concern is that we have 48 hours to get this in, and having our staff put this through the portal within 48 hours, I'm concerned about the resource implications, council having to do that body of work. I just looked at this one and just saw how much work goes into submitting that, and it's a big document to submit through the portal. That would be my main concern at this stage, the lateness of such. There will be future round opportunities. But anyway, let's continue to debate the matter. Councillor Henshin.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I can't support this either. As Councillor Jones has said, I think to come up with an application 2 days and only because of an extension is a little disappointing. Certainly down the track it would be looked at, but I would like to just note and flag that in the event that these applications were in and stated that it's not a competition, I would suggest that the people in the Coolabunga sale yard's proposal, if it was refused and the Mergen one was supported, we would have some fairly disgruntled ratepayers on our front door. Happy to support it, but I really don't think we could have two. We should have or should look at having two identical scenarios in the same round of funding. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Henshin. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I support the committee, the recommendation before council, largely because I just simply do not have enough information about the application. You know, this closes in a matter of hours, so to speak. And I too am a little bit disappointed that this is kind of just taken council by surprise. Certainly, I think this council is about collaborating and partnering with our community. And had this applicant come to council well in advance, when the round was first actually opened and said, this is what we want to do, I probably would have been a little bit more open to the idea. For me, it's not at all about the project, it's the process, and I don't think it would be responsible for me as a councillor to put my stamp of yes, go for it and we support you when I don't really understand the project or proposal before council. So I simply do not feel there's been enough time for this council to really understand the project that we're even being asked to support. And I'm also really mindful of the implications around being able to load this into the system. I agree with Councillor Jones. Perhaps I think it could be a really great project on face value for our region, and by all means fully support any regional development and growth. That's not why I'm not supporting this going forward. I simply am disappointed that this has just been brought to council at the last minute. So I'm fully supportive of the recommendation before council, and do hope that maybe after this we can have some positive conversations with the company in that has put this request to council, so that, you know, we can gear up for the next round. Definitely. And if anything, I'd like to see. It's a big reason why I'm pushing the Regional Development Advisory Committee, because I'd like to see more shovel-ready projects, more collaboration, more opportunities. But this is just going about it all the wrong way. And I look forward to more positive conversations about how we can work together in the future when there is more time.
Thanks, councillor Shoemaker. Other councillors? Now, councillors, we're just going to, CEO's just recommending some changes to the motion, and then we'll get you to have a look at those, Councillor Jones and Councillor Henson as the seconder. Make sure you're comfortable with those before we continue the debate. Thanks, Mr. CEO. Councillors, can you see that there as presented?
Does that make it a little bit better as far as, because it's from just listening, it's not that anyone doesn't support it, but it's just the resourcing implications. And the other, just for clarity, the reason we didn't wear into life on Monday, BBRF does require a council resolution, so I'm unable, the organisation is unable to submit it without a resolution. You could put it in the portal, but it'll be knocked out in the first minute if it doesn't have the resolution.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. Okay, Councillor Jones, are you happy with that motion as it's presented there?
Yes, Mr Mayor, fully supportive, and that CEO, thanks for that extra clarification. So it justifies the extra need for time. Thank you.
Councillor Henson?
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you.
Okay, councillors, again wishing to speak for or against before we go to the vote. Councillor Duff, did you want to add any further? You've spoken against. Did you want anything further before we go back to Councillor Jones for right of reply?
No, Mr Mayor, I just going, yeah, happy with the wording. Well, I'm still going to vote that we could have given it, I thought we probably could have just submitted it. I don't think it's just a matter of putting it through the portal. I wouldn't have thought it was going to be a major job once they were going to do all the work, not us. We were just going to actually submit the application. So anyway, I'm still voting against it. Thank you.
Sorry, I probably tend to, for me, I would certainly think Councillor Shoemaker's observations are very appropriate. That, for me, I would like to see the application, understand what we're asking for, how much, what's the objectives, what are going to be the economic and social benefits of such, before providing council support. So I would agree very much with Councillor Shoemaker on this particular matter. That's my view. Any other councillors wish to comment before we go back to Councillor Jones for right of reply? Thank you.
Yeah, just to finish up, Mr Mayor, I just want to make it quite clear that I'm certainly not against this proposal or in any way, shape or form. I take Councillor Shoemaker's point. It's all growth in our region and all that sort of stuff. But again, we've had the discussion. The recommendation clearly states that we will look upon it again in future rounds and all that sort of stuff. So it's certainly not been thrown out onto the rubbish heap. And this council, I'm sure, will treat it duly and respectfully if it comes back in for rounds 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So happy to move this recommendation.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. And of course, if this is duly passed by Council, Councillor Duff, if you could perhaps certainly convey the nature of the motion, that Council's limited resources, just don't have time to have a good look at the application, but certainly Council is looking to consider it for future rounds of BBRF or other funding, so that we're not closing the door on the applicants in this case. If you could convey that to them, that would be much appreciated. Thank you, should that be the case. Okay, well, let's put it to the vote. Those in favour? Okay, so carried. Sorry, those against? Councillor Duff. So carried, 6 votes to 1, with Councillor Duff voting against. Right, thank you all, councillors. Thank you, staff. I'll now move to close the meeting at 12:42 p.m. and in doing so, thank you all for your participation today. It has been indeed an enjoyable and productive committee meeting. Thank you all and have a wonderful rest of day. Thank you.